Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of HLTV Confirmed, episode number 10. We're going to summarize just quickly what is coming up on today's show. We've got karrigan here in the hot seat. We're going to the recent news. We just finished off Pro League for season number 12. Some players in North America going to Valorant. No surprises there. Talking about those coach bans or moves to being analysts. Going to be taking a little bit of a look as well with some playtime questions that you guys at home have been asking karrigan, and we'll get to that towards the tail end. Now, let's get this one underway. There might be a couple of tech issues. Lucas hasn't been doing his job right again, but he hasn't been fired this week. So Lucas, say hello to everybody.
Hi, guys.
Okay, that's good. At least he's in a chippy mood right now. Prof, what'd you have for breakfast?
Actually some cookies, not the best breakfast, but I wasn't really feeling that well. So I'm like, I can eat whatever the fuck I want today. That was the mood. So do not recommend, but it is what it is, man.
Okay, Striker, did you have breakfast or have you only just woken up?
Well, I don't know if you can count it breakfast when it happened at like 12, but I guess so, yeah.
Gamer's first meal of the day. We'll count it. Now, before we introduce our guest, let's run the bumper, Lucas. And in the hot seat today, we have none other than Finn karrigan Andersen, born on April 14th, 1990. He's a Danish/German professional Counter-Strike Global Offensive and former professional Counter-Strike player who currently plays for mousesports as an in-game leader. That's thanks to Wikipedia. If HLTV.org, guys, if you had little blurbs like that, I could read those. So maybe work on that, Prof and Striker, see what you can come up with in the future. Maybe it could be better. Finn, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Has been 2 long weeks with some Pro League and also the qualifier for DreamHack Open that's coming up right in 12 days. So there's been a stressful 2-3 weeks we had.
We're calling it the Counter-Strike Network at the moment, mate. It doesn't stop. It's 24 hours around the clock, every single fucking day of the week. If people want Counter-Strike, they just have to go onto Twitch. It's always there. But something that I wanted to ask you about immediately before we get this off. Lucas, I sent you the link. Do you want to bring it up for everybody at home? And we can just show the people. Finn, if you want to talk about this, I don't know if you can see it. That's a question. But it's a link that you put on social media just the other day. I'll put it in TeamSpeak for you. And maybe you can let everybody know if you want to what this is about. Or maybe we can move on if you don't want to talk about it. Because we saw this come through. You got 57.1k likes on it. No views on it. What is this about?
I have to log into Twitter on this PC. One second.
Oh, shit. Okay. Well,
is it this tweet I made?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's not much to say yet about it.
Okay.
I just have to tell my fans to wait and see what's going to happen. So,
okay.
Not more about that right now.
All right. Well, we can get stuck into some questions then. I thought maybe we could pry some early information out of you with that one right there. But look, let's just recap, right? Because mousesports tail end of last year looking bloody fantastic. Tail end of 2019, you were first at CAC. You won EPL Season 10. You came first at CS Summit, even though you were on the plane on your way to get the visa. Moving into this year, you won the Ice Challenge over NAVI, I believe it was. And things were looking good. But then it started to taper off for mousesports. You know, you guys, it felt like you were either getting figured out or you were, running out of ideas, or the players weren't performing to the top level that they needed. What was going on from your standpoint?
I mean, it's hard to say, right? Because I felt like what we had end of year and beginning of year was pretty good. I felt like individually and as a team, we were kind of the best team in the world. I didn't respect anyone in any matter. Didn't matter what any matchup we had. I felt like we could win in any game. Coming into Katowice, I kind of felt we had some off matches. The G2 match, somehow we win first map so easy, and then we just get smashed the last 2 maps, and that was like the match to make sure we make to the playoff, right? Then we end up playing, I think it was Thunder Thieves,
Yep.
And again we win first map easy, I think, and somehow let it slip out of our hands. So looking at those results, I was like, that was really strange to see that we can have so good first map and suddenly maybe we are too overconfident or something. It was really hard to see what happened during that tournament. So I didn't take it as a big sign of issues. Maybe we were too overconfident. Maybe we need a slap on the wrist or in face to get back in the game, right? And then ESL Pro League started, and I kept seeing these strange results out of us. We get 7 rounds against OG. 10 days later, we can beat Astralis, even though we also get 5 rounds 4 days before that. And we ended up being in second place. So it kind of felt really strange, these result in, I think it was March, April, right? When we had this first Pro League online, and we kind of got second place, lost 3-2 to Fnatic in the best of 5 final, right? And that's not a bad result when you take in consideration what we had in Katowice. But after that, I don't even know what happened, but it can't. Within 3-4 weeks, it kind of felt like we were outside top 10 so fast compared to the other results. It wasn't because we figured out, I feel like, because during that period, I worked so hard on making completely new strats. Like, from after the Pro League, I went into the server, figuring out all the maps, what we should do. 2 months later, I did the same thing, because I kind of felt like we're playing so many matches, maybe it doesn't work, but something was not clicking within the team. And like you said, the performance on, from the players besides Rups was dropping drastically. You're talking all 4 players going 10% below the level they had only 6 months ago. Woxic, David, Woxic, Frozen, Chris and me dropping completely off a cliff. And I think that was too harsh. Normally you can have 1 or 2 players drop off a cliff and you can still make it far in tournaments, right? But here just everything fell off. All the maps we could rely on, train those 2 was always our key map. Suddenly we had losing streak of 5 maps in a row. And I was like, okay, we've probably got figured out, but in the end, I didn't feel like that when I'm watching the demo. So it was a very strange situation with the whole team situation. Couldn't boot camp. Maybe that was part of this being away for so long time. People maybe not having these normal rhythm, you would say, during a day, right? How you meet up to a tournament. I had the same issue. Me and Chris talked a lot about how can we fix this, that you have this like normal tournament day life where you wake up, you see your teammates, you go to tournament, you go to the match, you perform, right? You're just home working your ass off. And I worked more the last 6 months than I ever done any period when there was a tournament, because I had this eager to win and stuff like that. And I also had to take a break during that period in May, where I said to myself, okay, you need a week off from CS right now because you're overthinking stuff. And I think all in that overthinking and also the individual performance did that we didn't play so good in the end with that lineup.
Just tying together the end of like 2019, I suppose you guys were attending an awful lot of events. Do you think that you attended too many, or do you feel like the run was worth it because of all the victories you guys picked up?
I would say it was worth it because it gave so much confidence to the team, right? I've been part of many teams where suddenly you click a tournament, and the next tournament you don't even need to make new stuff. You're just rolling on this feeling everybody's making the right decisions. So if it would have gone wrong, let's say in Pro League we won and we go in January, February, and we suddenly play like, let's say, 4 tournaments within 8 weeks, and we start losing, I would blame it on that. Yes, that would have been a stupid thing to do, to throw away the momentum so fast. But we kind of gained the momentum by going to Shanghai, by going to Summit, somehow winning with a stand-in. So yeah, I think overall it was the right decision. We had to make a move as a lineup end of the year to kind of get that trophy in our hands, and also motivation to know and need to know as a team if you can beat the best teams in the world. So I think it was worth it, even though I mean, we made 4 out of 5 finals, lost 1 final to Vitality, who had like 14 days of bootcamp before the epicenter final, right? So I think it was worth it in the end, even though it was really tough on the team, but I don't think it translated into 2020 at all at any point.
Okay. Striker, Prof, you guys got anything here?
What about how you were dealing with like the fact that everything moved online? Because it felt like almost everybody got affected in some way. And as you were talking about, you were kind of inconsistent, you know, like that Astralis turnaround at Pro League comes to mind, where you lost like 16-3, 16-1 one day, and then the next day you beat them in 3 maps fairly easily. So was just the fact that everything moved online also a factor for you guys, or did you feel like that wasn't?
Like, it's hard to say, right? Because I feel like if you watch mousesports the last 1.5 years, the way we won those matches was grinding back comebacks often. It's not like we had a huge lead and we just closed out the match. It was more like somehow we made a comeback when we just see everybody shouting, Voxic, me, everybody stepping up, you know, and we kind of fire each other up. And moving that towards online, yes, that will 100% be affected. Voxic is a LAN player. Everybody knows that when he's on LAN, you see him shouting, you can see the passion coming through, right? And I also have hard time sometimes showing that passion online. But right now I'm shouting everything I can in my mic just to motivate the guys, because I feel like that's the only way we get back in that kind of feeling. This is how it's set, right? This is how it is. And also I feel like in the beginning of this COVID-19 thing. We didn't know how long it's gonna last. Okay, there's gonna be a land in 3 months, we all say, right? And then suddenly there's no sign of it. We keep playing bad. We even try to keep the mood up. But even if I pointed out the next match, we would have the mood up because I said the mood is really important for the team. And then the match after we won, suddenly the mood is down. And I feel like kind of everybody has to step up their role even more online to keep the mood up and keep everyone fired up, because that was kind of the identity of mouz, I would say, that we trusted we can do the comeback and everybody just feeling this fire of everybody in the teammates. And that didn't translate into online as I would have hoped. And I feel like that has changed a lot right now with a new player, new energy. Everybody is again in this like, okay, it's a new time. It's trying to create a new identity as a team, right? So that's the difference between now and the old mousesports lineup we had online, I feel like.
I wanted to ask about the timing of the Krieg nerf that actually came in after Pro League, right? That was the last event that had the overpowered Krieg, let's say, with Brolan being an MVP, so people remember that. Statistically, mousesports actually weren't the team that used it the most. Like you're, I think, in the bottom 5 of the top teams or something like that. But how did that play into like your guys' play style? Because I think you used it quite a bit, and maybe Frozen. I'm not sure. I think the rest of the team didn't use it that much.
Using it, right?
So how much do you think that actually play a part in like the issues you had later in the year?
I would say that actually in the beginning of the year, we didn't use it as much as we did in the end of the year. We kind of had the feeling that Krieg was so OP if you bought it, and the CTs got it, it would wreck you. Let's say the third is 3-0, you lose to Krieg, 2 Kriegs are gone, CT hands, and you're playing nuke. How are you gonna attack the sides when a Krieg is holding ramp, Krieg is holding outside? It's like basically like an AWP. So I kind of felt like we already knew after Pro League that we won so many matches by getting the Krieger CT. Suddenly you have so big advantage on train, for example, where we often got a Krieger CT. You don't need to go in team in to take map control. You just sit back behind 6 and just aim at people coming out. So we started not playing it a lot in the beginning of the year. So also the Krieg nerf I was actually happy about the Krieg nerf because I felt it could have hurt us harder if it was right after Pro League, because we were using as much as everyone did at that point, but it didn't really change much for us the way we're playing, because we already decided not to buy it too much. We decided to buy it in overtimes. I think against Astralis, we didn't play it the whole map on Dust 2, but overtime I pick it up because now it doesn't matter anymore, right? It's like 3 rounds and you just have to get all the advantage you have. So I kind of didn't feel the Krieg nerf hit us that much, but it can be the zone of players. We're kind of getting used to playing Krieg on the CT side, like picking up from the enemies that could have hurt us, but not by buying it ourselves. I didn't feel that hurt us as much. So yeah.
Okay. Well, I think what we can do now is move forward in the timeline a little bit and start talking more recent events. Now, everybody is well aware of the woxic departure, I suppose, from the outside and the way it was framed, or the way that it was picked up by the community. What's the Finn take? What's the karrigan take from the mousesports side of things with this going down?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff, right? Because like I said, the mood was an issue, but it wasn't only woxic, for example. You know, a mood in a team is often based off how everybody is reacting to each other. If you're used to a guy being happy, if he's not suddenly happy, you have a kind of issue. Somebody has to take his place to be the happy guy, right? And everybody knows from LANs that me and woxic is the guys who gets the most fired up in the lineup. Missing that out on woxic, which we also talk about, it is Corona times. It is different. You're sitting alone home online. He can't be at boot camp. The boot camp we did, we couldn't get him into Germany, and we tried so much for 2 or 3 weeks, but it was not possible. And that's kind of also harsh that we have to play there without him, because it doesn't feel like a team. But we had to go to see each other on LAN to kind of play. And like I said, everybody dropped up a cliff besides Rups, right? And I kind of knew that if we didn't perform at Cologne, even though we're sitting 5 of guys at LAN and woxic at home, there's had to have something happen, right? For me, the goal of Cologne was, can we be a competitive team again? Can we have a chance in all the matches played? Do we lose 2-1, or do we just lose 16-5, 16-4 again? Because that's not acceptable anymore. Yes, it was acceptable before the summer break, because we were maybe getting a little burned out. The results were getting to our heads, but this was like a fresh start. And it kind of felt like something missed in the team. And as an in-game leader, as a coach and an organization, it is hard to set the finger on what it is, because you look at the lineup, you say Robs is the only one safe. Everybody else on the server is not safe at the moment. They're performing. You might gonna say I have an important role, but could there be someone else performing better in my place as well, right? Right now, I feel like Robs is top 3 rifler in the world. The way he has performed with the team in your mind, right? Then you feel like Robs is 100% safe in the team. So the decision is made by coach, organization, and the team, and a lot of long talks. What's gonna happen? What can we do? What's the changes? And we had, like you heard, we had Bymas on the bench, which wasn't supposed to step in and all at this point. He was supposed to watch some practices, be a development player. He still has school, so him playing full pro is very tough for himself with the stress level. But like I said, something had to happen. We had to just try to figure out some different roles in the team, and that's also figured out for what are we going to do for the future, right? We have no idea if the lineup is going to stay like that. We don't have a stable main orber right now. We're trying to figure out who is that going to be, right? Because when you play woxic, you need to be very sure the next orber you have or the orber in your team is doing the job you exactly need as a team. Because you cannot get a better orber than woxic in pure reflex, pure aiming. He is a really, really good orber if he's gonna be used right and he's in the right spot at the right time. So it was a tough decision all for the organization, team, and coach, because there wasn't no direct line of where we wanted to go, and this is how we ended up. And we just said, okay, we're gonna take tournament by tournament, see how we're gonna do with the roles. What are we gonna do for 2021, basically? And we're not thinking 1 day ahead or 2 days or 3 weeks. We're thinking, what can we do to become one of the best teams in the world in 2021? And I think that's the main point of this kind of identity change of mousesports.
So why?
Yeah, go for it, Striker.
It's just, yeah, you were talking about the roles, and obviously most people would have expected chrisJ to just take over the op. Not only just because he is the only like other main opera basically historically that you have on the team, but also because it seemed like something that could get him out of the slump that he was in, right? Just like a change of space, change of a role, just to get him fired up again. You know, have him on the up a little bit more again. It just seemed like a pretty obvious choice, right? So why just throw it around so much instead of, you know, putting it to the guy that is most used to it, I guess?
I mean, everybody knows once Chris was main orbing below her Sunday, suddenly when you play as an orber, right, you're testing it out. I think the best example you have is Belo Horizonte with Chris and also the pre in Astralis, right? When you play this one tournament and you feel really, really good with it, you might and your teammates might think this guy can be really good orb. We need to keep it as a main orber. But what I wanted to do is to make sure that we take the right decision, pushing Chris in the main up before he gets into that zone and suddenly he wants to keep it and maybe not completely satisfied with him after 2 or 3 tournaments. What I wanted to achieve on the same time we putting me on the main orb was to get a better overview and also get out of my role. I've played the same T role, I don't know, for 9 years now, running in, being anti-fragger, playing info plays, making the right calls, right? So I wanted to challenge myself as an in-game leader to put myself in an orban role, because I still feel I can do a decent job and be very supportive. Because the other issue we had in the team was the flashbangs in the team. We as a team don't do the right flash at the right time, and what I really paid attention to through the stats that in Pro League the first few games, my flash statistics went through the roof because I'm not dying first anymore. I can set up my teammates with the perfect flashes, the perfect grenades. So that was a thought process I wanted to try out before changing Chris into another role again. So Chris, I want him to stay in the same role, and Bymas taking my role together with Chris, right? So it wouldn't be a change of the other ways around. So me and Chris is veterans, right? He can play a role one day and the next day he can play main orb. It doesn't affect him as much as it does. And also want to see how Bymas and Chris works as an intro and how me and Bymas works as an intro, because down the line it's always easy to take the safe choice in Chris, but what if it would work better with me in a period? But I didn't feel like I played good enough with the orb to justify that I have to have it all the time. But what I saw during this period where we played 2-3 weeks was, if I don't always go first in, I can have way more impact in the mid-round calling and exactly save my nades for the execute I want to do. Because often, if you see the games, I'm first in as a guy going in on the bomb side. That means maybe the grenades you need to throw on the fly is not as good as mine, for example, right? So that was a thought process, and I kind of feel like I can take something out of the both sides from the main opening role as an in-game leader and the entry, and if I can mix that, maybe I can find an even better style where I'm calling it, and that's for future to see how that works now with maybe changes in the roles.
Just on that right there. So obviously, the last two matches you guys have within Pro League, the big game, it looked like you were doing the primary AWPing. Obviously, Chris picking it up. You mentioned to us previously maps like Nuke, CT side. Chris would do the primary AWPing because it's a difficult, thing to pick up. But then against Astralis, it looked like Chris was doing the primary AWPing, and you were going back to that entry role. Like, why did you decide to change it from the big game into the Astralis matchup?
Yeah, so basically what I said I talked with Chris before making this change. So we actually changed before the big game. So
Okay.
here was, I wanted to throw a curveball. We couldn't really play with our veto. You have seen us picking. It was straight up what we're gonna do in the veto, right? So everybody knew what we're gonna pick, how the veto's gonna look like, AWPer's out. I could not play with people's anti-stratting. So what I thought to myself is, like, I tested 1 or 2 maps before against Big that put Chris on the main op on some maps to see how it works. 2 things to it. That is, first of all, I know Big and Astralis is 2 teams that heavily rely on anti-stratting. And by throwing a curveball that we're anyway gonna change now, I think it was worth a gamble because our map pool was not strong, right? So people find our weaknesses. So does 2 look really good in beginning of Pro League with me made opening, and then it went to basically shit. Like we lost 4 does 2 in a row, so I knew Big is gonna pick it and throw Chris on main op to kind of surprise them there, and I think we kind of did that. But the second thing was that anyway you're gonna change, I feel Chris was the right time to do it. All I think it was the right decision, and like you said, it kind of looked strange suddenly he was main home the other day. There was actually a third thing that's also the problem as a main AWPer. We had that at TSM as well. We had 3 AWPers, KJB, Device, and me, right? One of the key issues we had back then was if we started on Nuke, Device would main AWP. If second map would be Marsh, I would main AWP. Third map, KJ would main AWP, right? That means your AWPer doesn't need to really get warmed up. And I could really feel that since we picked Nuke a lot in Pro League, that Chris was getting warmed up with the AWP on Nuke, and I kind of got in the second map not really feeling the AWP yet, and I had to kind of, only in the third map, I start feeling comfortable with it. So that was really something I also kept reminding myself about TSM, that having not a primary AWPer constantly can really also put pressure on the AWP that suddenly is going to pick it up on third map.
Okay.
So how do you see this working out in the future then? Because obviously it seems like you don't really have your mind completely made up about what the state of affairs will be with it.
I mean, I kind of said that earlier, right? Because we put Chris on the main op now, we're gonna see how that works, right?
Okay.
So we give him the full AWP experience now, where I had 6 or 5 maps and he had 1 map on Nuke, right? Because didn't want to take that from him. That was the same. They had a mousesports. He's really good on main opening that map. So yeah, right now we're gonna see how that works with Chris and take it from there. Like I said, my role maybe also changed a little bit. My calls now. Work around that because of the experience I had as a main AWPer. So I wanted to try that main AWPing experience before I put Chris in, because I felt like that could give me another view of how I can utilize the AWP better. And I feel like there's some kind of things in my career, like I play with the best AWPer, but only in part of the period I can get the best out of him. Guardian is an example, Alu is an example, and also now here with woxic, right? We got really good things out of woxic in a period, but suddenly it fell through. And I don't know if that relies on me, the way my style may be changed during a year, or it's just the player maybe changing his style, right? You never really know before you see the facts.
How important do you think it is to have an AWPer of that caliber, though? Because if we look back at Liquid, when they were one of the best teams in the world, Nitro was doing the lion's share of the AWPing, and he wasn't a primary AWPer, right? So you have now that little spicy rifle trio of Rops, Frozen, and obviously Bymas coming in the mix. Like, that is a very, very potent rifle mix. Do you think it's important for you guys to have a star AWPer, or you can just make those riflers do a lot of that work?
Yeah, that's kind of the things I paid attention to, right? Since you don't have a star AWPer, the rifles gets way more space in the map, right? I feel like Rups has always had the space. He has a very set role, but suddenly FaZe and Bymas is getting a lot more movement and refrag potential because there's not a main AWPer in scenario, right? Inferno comes to mind on the T side. I cannot remember last time I felt so confident on the T side Inferno, because we don't have a main AWPer. We have very explosive players in me, Chris, and Bymas. That means when you go on B Inferno, nobody stops. The first goal is just get into triple and dark and get the bomb side. Where if you had a main AWPer, he might be a little slower into the side, and then you had your more passive players like Frozen and Rubs, right? But when we attack a side, now it's 3 guys running kamikaze into side, and you just trade really fast off each other. And I think that's one of the biggest changes I've actually seen now by not having a main AWPer. And I kind of also, that makes sense in the Liquid example. They were really good on Inferno team. And I don't think you really need a T AWPer on that map. You need it to maybe scare the enemies, but you don't need it as a thing to win, right? You just need the utility uses in a very good way. So that's one of the things I've seen changing. And also Nuke is a map that you don't need an AWPer on the T side again. And that's the 2 best maps in our pool right now is Inferno and Nuke, where you can really use the rifles to a better degree now without having a main AWP behind just a third guy.
Okay, sweet. Prof, you got anything on this?
So what does that mean, like, moving forward? Would you be comfortable playing with a either without a main AWPer or maybe with someone, let's say like Brokey, who does it in a more like passive way, right? Or maybe even Henny and Furia as well. So how do you think about like the future of the AWP role for yourself?
I mean, that's a really good question, right? Because I still feel like there's more maps where they all can have a main impact on winning, right? Again, a good example is Train. Completely fell off a cliff for us, even though we have capable AWPers in our team to actually play that map, right? So T-side Train, for example, I can really feel we are missing woxic. Like, he was good on getting those entries. If I didn't make space or something else, we had another kind of aces in our pocket, right? If my teammate thing didn't work, Voxy would get an entry, or he would get an entry because of I'm making space, right? So there I can feel that we are missing a really, really good AWPer. So coming down the line, I need to take a more specific decision what's going to happen. And as right now, I feel like the way we're playing right now is good as it is, and I wouldn't change a thing right now. But again, I would say for tournament, do we need a star AWPer or we don't? Maybe Chris turns into a capable star AWPer, but have a very good supportive element, right? Then suddenly you have a good mix of what you need as an AWPer in this team where the rifles are really going crazy. So it's hard to say yet, to be honest. It is the testing theory and experiment how the meta shifts as well.
Do you think, especially during this online era where we have just tournament after tournament, matches going on non-stop, that being in this state of flux that you guys are at the moment is actually like a benefit versus the teams who are already quite locked and set in their ways, like Big, for example, or maybe some of those more established, like how complexity was starting to get. They were their T sides. You were starting to watch them and going, okay, well, this is the same thing over and over again, and teams were cottoning on with the counter strategy. Do you think being in flux right now is giving you guys an advantage?
With all the online matches being played, I think so. Being this very moving around, maybe the role changed, maybe it didn't. Again, Astralis has also this 6 or 7 man thing. They could change the play up 10 days before next tournament, right? So I feel like nowadays people are so heavily focused on anti-shredding that it can also hurt you in a way if the suddenly team changes, right? Because you build your whole game plan around that. I never really liked it, but I have to start doing it. I have a set plans in my head what I need to do. Sometimes I forget because I got catch in the moment of the feeling of the game. But yeah, maybe it helps, but again, it's too early to say, right? Because we had issues in the close qualifier for the DreamHack where we played 32 rounds average in these matches. But playing the teams where I don't know what happened, but something happened. We played way better CS. So I don't know. Or we catch the other guys off guard. It's hard to say, right? So still early phase to say. We only had a month now with Bymas, I think, and it has been non-stop maps for us. I think we played average at least 1 map each day, like when you take out the whole time, right? And he has school at the same time, so it's not like much practice could be fit in with the whole system.
How raw is Bymas? Like as a player who obviously had a little bit of time there on FaZe, but before that, nothing really. Like how malleable is he? Because obviously we're watching him going in like either second or first man, especially on Nuke. I remember watching one of the games the other day. His aim was just fucking nutty. He looks sick.
He has really good mechanics. It's a different mechanics than Robs has. He spray transfers a lot. So that means he's really good when he goes into sight. And also, when I watched him the first few days in ice, it kind of reminded me of Rejin, the way he clears angles really fast compared to Robs who take it slow. And I also really like to play with Rejin back then because the way he ran into sight was so clean to watch, but still so fast. So he has a lot of talent right now, but he also have a long day. So he's going for school from 8 to 15, then 16 to 21 practice, and he has basically no life outside CS, right? But I would say there's still some things he has to improve on the CT side, which I'm trying to tell him on specific maps where he has to realize how to play that better, because now I could see in demos that people abuse the way he played the specific side. So I tried to tell him, try to watch this kind of demos, and he's also asking who should I watch, and I'm trying to give him kind of a point of what players are hard to read in those positions. But yeah, Nuke, he's a monster right now, and also I feel Inferno still has something to learn. But especially in Nuke, you can feel he's very comfortable on that map, and that's really good to see already that he's doing the right decisions and he lost his position, and that, like also everybody said in the interview, I tried to make sure he as happy as possible, and then over time I have to tell him, okay, maybe you're not good enough to play this position. I'm sorry, because it takes a lot more experience. Even I didn't learn to play this position after 5 years of playing, right? But right now I'm giving him the possibility to change my mind about maybe that's not the best place for you to play, but I'm giving him the chance to kind of prove that by watching demos or coming with ideas, because I feel like if you give the player the trust that he needs, like, okay, I'm giving you a chance to show. I'm not saying this tournament or the next kind of weeks or only one day, I'm giving you the possibility to change my mind, and if it doesn't improve over that time when I'm watching the official matches, I have to tell him this is how you're gonna do it, or we have to move you around, and he's very happy just to say, like, if I'm exactly explaining how he needs to play it, he will try it, but he's also a little scared to do mistakes, and I think that comes with maybe not that confident yet in himself, but we are really confident in him as a teammates.
What do you then think about the way FaZe used him and then kind of left him on the sides, right? What do you think about that whole situation, how it transpired?
We call that a classic pump and dump in the business, Prof.
Okay, that sounds...
I mean...
But yeah, your former teammates and all of that, so you have a bit more insight, right?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know what they thought. Like, how... Olof is a guy with so much experience. His role takes so much experience, doing the right thing at the right moment, helping the team in the right set of situations. He's going to be in the free and freeze. He's going to take the right decisions every time. You put a 70-year-old kid who is first team is in FaZe, where the pressure is, if you're not number one, you guys are shit. So basically you put him in a role where, yeah, Olof might not have been the best at some point, but he did a lot for the team in the course and the way he was moving, not doing mistakes. Because the role Olof had was basically don't do mistakes, don't do screw-ups. Because if you do that, you cost the whole team. And I think with that, when the players... I think it was the wrong thing to do. I don't know if there was a long-term or this temporary thing, but you know me, every time I bring in a stand-in, Crowman comes to mind. I look at Crowman, I'm trying the first round, first map against someone, I put him Olaf role, and I told myself that after 12 rounds in the match, okay, I'm playing Olaf role rest of the match now, because he is not able to play that. So I just put him on another side, because if you have a temporary solution, I will do everything to win in that moment. I don't care about... I feel more about the player. I feel bad for the player coming in. There's so much pressure on it, and for me, every time you take in a new player standard, you try to do everything to make him part of the team and make him so confident that you, after that, you can kind of change his style, what you need him exactly what to do. But you need to give a player you bring in as a standard kind of a little leash to do whatever he wants, because if not, I feel like you're scared to do mistakes, right? You're coming in playing with Colseo Nico Rain, one of the biggest players in CSGO history, and they're telling you to play a passive role and you're a very aggressive player. That's never going to work.
Okay. Let's wrap the questions up for now, and we'll come back to more with karrigan once we get to playtime, because I think we have a bit to cover within the recent news. Let's roll that bumper, Lucas, and get. All right, we're going to get into the recent news. Karrigan, we have to talk about something right now. People want to know about the lamp. What's going on with the lamp in the cage?
Yeah, I'm tired of the lamp, so I put it in a cage, so I can't turn it in the night, you know? I hate
Okay.
lights in the night, so it is prison. I'm sorry if you
All
guys
right,
are feeling a little awkward about
But
it.
they really want it to be free. Like the chat really wants it free.
That's
Is that a possibility?
It's not,
for like...
it's not possible. I can tell you that now.
All right. Well, we'll leave the lamp chained on up right now. We'll
I can do like this. God. Oh, I'm not...
All right, let's get stuck into the recent news. So we'll kick it off talking about the North American teams potentially having a trip to Europe for the tail end of the year. Now, for those people who aren't too aware, we still have another Blast event. There was rumors that Flashpoint wanted to run their tournament offline as well. And then we obviously have ESL announcing their IEM Global Challenge within like the last week of play in, I think it's like the 15th to the 20th of December or something like that, which is also meant to be on LAN. Now, the more North American teams in question, I would say that we're looking at the EGs, the Liquids, the Furious of the world here, right, Striker?
Yep.
So with those,
and MIBR, I think, are in the discussion too.
Okay. Well,
obviously,
they don't have a roster, so
yeah.
I'm not going to talk about a team without a roster, so they can fuck off.
They have to have a roster by Flashpoint, which we expect to happen in like a month or something.
CSPPA was also meant to have a ranking for Flashpoint, and they can't fucking do that either. So if we're gonna Christmas is coming too. So at this point, right, with the world as the way it is, Striker, and you being a man who keeps his finger on the pulse of COVID, I have no idea if you do. What do you think the likelihood of this type of a maneuver for North American teams is?
I don't see why not, to be honest. Like we've seen North America, obviously, like times are changing a little bit again, but we've seen MIBR be able to make it here, and I think more teams will be able to follow. It's just the question of whether they want to take the risk and potentially get stuck here for a while, right? Because we saw people like Obo, I don't know if you saw that interview that we did. I think it was released yesterday. It was pretty clear that he didn't want to get stuck in the UK for God knows how long more. And that's why he kind of made that snap decision to leave a little bit earlier than he expected. So it's just down to whether they want to take that risk and are okay with potentially staying in Europe for longer than anticipated.
So just thinking about that from your perspective, Finn, you obviously did some travel recently, as you were talking about, for that boot camp. Now, it's a little bit easier to travel within Europe right now, but how different of a travel experience was it for you guys going to Germany?
I mean, we did it in a period where the COVID was not going up, right? It was going down after, I think it was in August, end of August. It was kind of stable in Europe. You say everybody had like the amount you would have to not go in quarantine and stuff like that. So for me, it was fine, but it was different. Like the airport is like a ghost, everything is more precautionary. Every time you go out and eat in Germany, you had to write your phone number down in case somebody got sick. All that kind of stuff was different, but I was not scared. One thing is now we wanted to kind of boot camp for the Pro League playoffs. That was not possible. I suddenly got a quarantine from the region I'm coming from in Germany that if I traveled, I had to stay there 14 days and not moving around and be in the hotel, right? So it is different now because of all the COVID numbers is going up again. So I would say right now it doesn't make sense for LAN because there's some lands some countries can be banned from traveling to other countries, right? So if the Europe has a stable overall line, I'll be fine with it. But again, we also had the problem with woxic, right? He's not part of Europe, so he was in Turkey and could not get to Europe, even though it was fine in Europe. But yeah, so I think right now it does make sense, but it might change again in 2 months. But within the next 4 weeks, I don't see it possible at any point to make a LAN.
So going with this, Prof, do you think if teams are able to try and if they do choose to make this move, that they're almost saying that they are potentially happy to stay in Europe over Christmas and New Year's?
I guess that is the thing. I mean, that is legit one of the scenarios they have to face that can happen. So interesting, considering like what players have been complaining about for the whole year, if that this is something they're kind of okay with doing when they're not okay with waking up for 10 a.m. matches and playing 10 a.m. right? So for me, that just feels kind of ridiculous where the lines are put. But of course, not always the same players and everything like that.
Yeah.
Maybe the most interesting part from this news was like the team names that were thrown. It was like Blast was heading the thing, so it was Liquid, EG, 100 Thieves, and MIBR as the fourth team. I just found that interesting because they have 2 players now, so that's not really a team. And Furia is not on the list, so it would really suck if this happened and Furia wasn't one of the teams that was able to make the trip, right?
Sure. We want to get Furia over here to see if we can get that type of form they've been showing online on LAN against the Europeans, right? Because I think one of the biggest things, and if I was a North American player in these teams right now, and I've competed in North America before, and I know what it's like when you travel over to Europe. There's an initial shock. Once you get into Europe, those little fucking wide peaks that you'd go for, or you wouldn't jiggle a corner, or, well, it wasn't so prevalent when I was playing, but in the sense of you couldn't get away with the same level of mistakes, right? The Europeans, they punish you a lot harder. It's where the highest caliber of Counter-Strike is played. And I would, if I was EG or Furia, I'd be running with those 2 names. At the moment, I don't think Liquid are in the conversation. And then 100 Thieves as well, probably not in the conversation either. But those 2, EG and Furia, if they could get on over and they were happy, because for Furia anyway, they're away from home regardless, right? You think about what they're doing. They're living in Florida. They're not even close to their family back there in Brazil. And for EG, these guys, most of them North American, besides Zeus, who's in Brazil, and obviously Cirque, who's, Bulgarian. But if they make that play and they go to Europe, then they've already had the lion's share of 2020 at home. So maybe they would be willing to sacrifice the family time that probably is not going to happen over Christmas anyway. Like, I don't think too many people are going to be able to move around that much to get to family gatherings, and travel is going to be restricted in that regard anyway. So I don't know, to get the level of Counter-Strike up to where it needs to be, maybe, but I don't know. Like, obviously we have the whole health risk thing coming into play, which we need to keep in mind. At least a lot less people are dying. Like, if we're going to look at the numbers in that way, like, less people are dying, so that's a positive thing. I didn't think I'd be talking about actual death on this fucking podcast again. Anyway, so yeah, let's just put a pin in that before we get too depressed about COVID. So if it happens, it'd be great. I would really like to see EG and Furia. If not, understand, safety first, all that fucking stuff. Let's move forward to this floppy to join EUC9. Now, is this just a rumor? Because I'm having a hard time reading the news every day and talking about Counter-Strike and trying not to lose my mind. Is this
a report?
Okay, so this is another one of these reports where I'm sure there's probably a little bit behind it. I thought the initial discussions was Floppy wanted to stay with the boys, right, Striker?
Yeah, I mean, but I think the JT said that both Floppy and OC were getting some offers from other teams, but they claimed that they wanted to stick together. Obviously, I guess things change. Maybe people aren't that interested in the current Cloud9 team. Maybe they're not. They don't really have an organization that's going to buy them out of Cloud9 or whatever the situation is there. So maybe Floppy is just not feeling secure anymore that much. So things changed and he changed his mind. That's how I would see it anyway.
Yeah, it's one of those decisions where you're definitely going to have an upgrade in the terms of teammates you've got around you, right? Like, if you get an opportunity to play with woxic, obviously karrigan was just speaking earlier about how good of an AWPer he is, and coming in as well. Alex, sure, he was playing with some of French, the best French players of all time, right? So there's a lot of experience there that he could be learning from. But karrigan, have you watched much of Floppy with that Cloud9 roster? Probably not on your radar, right?
Well, not really, but I kind of saw he had really good statistics. I think it was before Katowice. I kind of first realized his name. I think he was also playing Cloud9 at that point. I can't remember, but the name says me something from back then before Katowice, and obviously he keep performing good online. So definitely a guy to watch out. I have no idea what kind of style he plays, and also if he needs to be set up to have those good numbers, right? That's up to the in-game leader in Cloud9 and also the management to kind of know what his circumstances has to be for him to perform at his best, right? Because every player who's performing really high level, like simple Saivu, needs some conditions to be able to perform and put up those numbers. So hard to really say something about Floppy for my side.
Do you think this is too much of a risk, Prof, in the sense of they've already have Mezzi, who is, let's say, untested at this level, and you could definitely argue Floppy is in that same boat, considering the majority of the Counter-Strike he has played is in the realms of, and I mean no disrespect here, but the lower rungs of North America.
Yeah, I mean, he now has more experience. He's on a higher level, but still on a lower level than, I don't know, the mousesports players or whatever. So he is somewhere there. He is also one of the players that played like 10 seasons of MDL, I think, before getting to Pro League. So congratulations on making it. That's an achievement after struggling for so many years. But the thing is, when you look at the lineup, I feel like it lacks, like, the way it was announced, the Colossus, Cloud9, all of that. You pick up Alex, you pick up woxic, okay. But then you have Mez, you have Floppy, and then the fifth is still unknown. I think the question is, like, who would the fifth need to be for this to be like a top 10 lineup in like 6 months or a year or whatever? I think when you look at it from that perspective, the last signing needs to be like a baller of some sort.
Like a top 20 player, yeah, I agree.
So what names are you thinking of then in that case, Striker? If it has to be a top 20 player, who do you think, even if we're poaching, even if we're taking players, who do you think would fit that roster?
I mean, there would be one very obvious one that's, I imagine it's not going to happen, but that'll be Robs.
Ain't happening.
Because but that's honestly, I feel like that would be probably like the best player to run this off, to be honest. But you also have like people like JKS, who would also be a very good addition. It's kind of a similar player to Robs as well, kind of the same role that they're looking for. So I think either one of those two would make me feel like this Cloud9 roster can go somewhere big relatively quickly, right? If it's not somebody like that, I'm not sure. I'm probably going to be as skeptical as Prof about this.
But I also have the feeling that this, when Cloud9 comes out, I feel like everybody's kind of also at the same time restructuring the team. So I can imagine the price of all the players right now are expensive as never before. That's only imagination, because you see D2 report trying to get Nico, right? So FaZe has to get someone, Cloud9 has to get someone, Complexity has to get someone. So everybody's out trying to see who they can get, and I can only imagine the more people ask, the higher the price gets. Like, everybody knows if how economy works, right? So I feel like it's a very, very difficult time that Cloud9 has to build a completely new roster. So I can imagine they're taking in these players for a 3 months trial, see how it goes. Maybe a player gets available end of the year, right? Because that would be the clever move to do. You kind of announce you want to be the big dog, but sometimes the opportunity doesn't arise, and you have to wait until it comes to the hands where they can get a player, because he's benched. The price is way below than if you have to buy him out of a situation where the team has to go out and buy a new one, right? So if they're clever, yes, they are saying they want to be the big dogs. They have two good signings in Vox and Alex name-wise. And if they have Messi and Floppy, and they maybe get a fifth guy who's a little like, oh, maybe he could bring it back, a little older player, maybe with some experience. And you kind of have these, okay, you have Voxic and Alex safe, but you gifted Floppy and the Messi 3 to 6 months. You see one guy is doing it, one guy isn't. Okay, let's find a new guy, and what exactly do you need of that role? Because right now it's hard for me to say who they're going to pick, because I have no idea about the Messi role and have no idea about the Floppy role, right? So they have roles open in lineup. They just need a top rifler who fits the entry role or the lurk role, like you strap with Robs, right? Because you need a Robs in everybody's team who is doing the passive things and never doing mistakes.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way they have to go with the lineup.
I think Floppy is there for the entry, and Mezzi is kind of like undecided at this point, depending on the last player. That's how I'd assume it, at least based on watching both players play. But Floppy is definitely an aggressive player who I would expect to be somewhere at the front.
He has really good stats to be the first guy into a site.
Yeah,
so he has to be this second or third guy in, because that's like, you're talking Art scenario then, because Art is a really aggressive player with high stats, but I haven't seen an Interfragger posting those kind of numbers.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I think when you look at this, Floppy, I don't know if when they add him to the roster, if they'll re-sign him or like give him like an extended contract, because he already has a Cloud9 contract, right? So it's not a player that they have to purchase, which could play into what you were just saying there, Finn, in the sense of wait and see, right? Let's say they do sign a very decent, solid rifler in this last slot, and then Floppy can kind of be left in limbo if they want to change him out and upgrade firepower. Right, that could be something they could do if they don't re-sign him. Right, if they just keep him on whatever contracts he's on, they might be able to upgrade him if shit's not going very well. And that could be an option. And I think it's interesting what you posed as well about these other teams who need players like Complexity at the moment. I think Complexity would be another team, and yeah, obviously it's not going to happen. Would be another team who like would really benefit from like a ROPS type of player right now, because Obo, sure, you know, he's quite aggressive, fantastic aim, but I was thinking about a lot of the CT sided positions that he plays, and he's like the solo anchor. If you get like a solid rifler in that slot for Complexity, like a JKS, like a ROP, something like that, that team is going to fucking go off, because they put Obo in a lot of positions where he needed a lot of experience. If you're being honest, like the ramp holder, you had B on Vertigo as well, you know, all those solo positions. So yeah, a lot going on right now in the Counter-Strike world. What was the next news topic we had up here? Oh. Let's keep it moving. We're going to talk about some fucking turncoats, ladies and gentlemen. Nah, I don't care. Anyway, Chet, I'm a Pet, Som, and Daps are leaving Counter-Strike and going to Valorant. Who would have thought, right, Striker?
I still feel like you had some behind the scenes information. I do not believe that you just called that out
just
of
from
nowhere.
Twitter, just from the tweets. Right?
I do not believe that.
No, because you look. Here's what you have to do with North America. First of all, you have to look at who they're talking to, who they're being buddy with, all that kind of stuff, and then how much time they're putting into those tweets, right? So if they're talking about Valorant every couple of days, then guess what? They're probably going to fucking Valorant. There's a couple of other names there, I would say, within some more top tier North American teams who are probably considering that move as well. I don't want to throw any more names out there, but there's a couple on the tip of my tongue.
Do it.
I'm not. No. We'll keep it now, because the EG one, I think the CEO of EG came out and said that's not happening. Even though I have more information in recent times that things aren't honky dory over there. But this move right
Wouldn't
now,
be a CEO to not deny like the obvious news. So
yeah. Look,
not in this case.
I hope
obvious,
I'm wrong.
In general,
I hope I'm wrong. I hope EG stay with Counter-Strike. But what do we think about this? Like, Daps makes sense because he had the ability to weigh up his decisions. But Som, Striker, felt like an individual who was starting to make some waves in that Genji team.
Yeah, for sure. But hard to say. I really don't know Som, so it's just difficult to say if he's like good friends with all those guys and just potentially sees a future there. It's hard for me to tell, honestly.
Well, it's rumored that look, this is going to get clipped, but whatever. This is the story of talking online. It's rumored that some of the money that's being thrown around is like 20,000 plus for Valorant players at the moment, right? And I'm being a little bit modest with that, right? So when you consider the amount of money that's being thrown around to be a Valorant pro, and you're in a new game where you know that the developer is going to get behind the game eventually, if you can establish yourself as a household name within the early stages, there's a bunch of new fan bases out there that are going to be lapping it on up for the easy mode version of the FPS we play. And like that seems like, especially for a younger player like Som, a great opportunity to become a household name within that game. Do you think that's something that might entice him, Prof?
Jesus Christ. Like how is that? How does that make sense?
But
nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense. It's the classic. It's just like inflate everything to insane numbers, and that's it. I mean, of course, I do it as well if that's the number. Like, there's no point, especially in NA, in like the third, fourth, fifth best team in NA, to stick around for a scene that you don't even know who you're going to be playing in practice 2 months from now, because everyone's leaving, in a league that I don't know what the future is, because Genji is a Flashpoint team as well. So first season, of course, was fucked by COVID and no lands and everything, but you have no idea where that's going to develop. So you're stuck there, or go over here where you know most of the players anyway are the same players you played CS with 6 months ago. So why the hell not?
I think NA is in big trouble with all these things.
Just also remember this: like, they can always do unretirement and come back to CS in a year if their Valorant thing falls apart. Like, no one is stopping them from doing that. I mean, fucking Zelsis did it 2 times already. So
Yeah,
but it is going to stump NA for sure, at least for some time, just because of the sheer amount of really young players that have already made the switch.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to make a difference, especially with, like you said, if the top teams in NA, let's say COVID doesn't really improve, and the top teams in NA say, well, fuck it, like, what are we doing here? Like, there's nothing, we can't play each other for the next year again. So they're probably going to just go to Europe. Pro League is just going to probably get completely like put into one region, may perhaps play on LAN in the next one. So it's just for some of these players, I totally get it, I understand, but it is gonna fuck NA in the long term for sure.
Ben, I know that you've obviously been super busy as of late with all the tournaments going on and the extra prep that you've been having to do. But have you heard any of these rumors about Valorant? I know in Europe it's not such a big deal. Europe's always been a Counter-Strike place, and I'm not really worried about Valorant taking too many European pros, especially the good ones. But have you heard much from the North American side?
Not at all, but I think it makes sense, right? Valorant teams or who wants to invest in Valorant is doing the exactly thing that makes sense. Try to get as money. CSGO Pro should have as many fans as have. Try to get a Nitro guy. Try to get a Mixwell guy. Try to get these kind of players that will then make the younger players, like a Sum in this scenario, who doesn't maybe see a future in CSGO, or maybe he feels like he needs 2 or 3 years to get at the level of Liquid or something, you know, like this way, and he sees maybe a Shoko in Valorant where he can maybe triple up his money in salary from day one. So they're doing the right thing, signing the big names to big fan bases and overpaying them. But it doesn't make sense, right? If what you're saying, the salary start at 25k, it's never gonna last there. It's only to get players on the other side, and then once, let's say, CSGO and Valorant split up, the money in everywhere in CSGO and Valorant is all dropping, because either you in Valorant or in CSGO, you can't have kind of both teams in the long run, because they're gonna compete against each other in that FPS genre, right? So right now they're doing the right thing, but I don't see any European players going right now. But if the NAC dies and they take all the young players, like you're saying, it will hurt them in 1 or 2 years that there are no young upcoming player. Let's say a guy like Floppy, he comes in C9, he tries 6 months, doesn't work out, he goes Valorant. Suddenly you lose a upcoming player in NA because he doesn't really get the chance, right? And also, as an NA player, it's not often you get a chance. There's not so many opportunities. There's the 4 big dogs, right? The HUNDEN, Thieves, EG, and then there's Liquid, and I'm forgetting one.
Furia? Oh, I guess.
Furia is a Brazilian, right? So that doesn't really make sense.
We got Genji in the mix there.
Genji, yeah, that's what I mean. Like these players in Genji, right? They try. It would make sense at any point if Liquid EG is asking them, they would leave for that team, right? When you're looking at how they're performing, maybe they could be the next third best team in the North America of those two or those three, but it doesn't make sense right now as a young player in NA if you're getting the triple salary in Valorant and you're just trying that off. And you can always come back if the game dies in half year or a year. You can always go back to CS:GO, but you can never go back to Valorant. For every day you are not going to Valorant and you might want to change, every day you're losing an advantage because everybody else is grinding their ass off on that map, that game.
I think the curious one out of the mix here, because obviously daps can go over and he's going to be very, very serviceable as a player in that game, right? This is no disrespect. I played the game a little bit. The models and the speed at which they run and how the heads explode like watermelons reminded me of Source, right? It reminded me of how, I don't want to say much easier, but it was easier than 1.6. It was to get headshots and stuff in a game like that. And so for daps, whose mechanical ability probably came into question a little bit within CSGO, I think that he is going to be more than serviceable in a game like Valorant. But the one that I don't understand here, Striker, and I know that you have a decent relationship with this gentleman, is Chet potentially coaching. Now, what the fuck is there to coach at the moment in that game?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to say what kind of if that's even a coaching job, or is it just like a GM type thing where he just wants to put those players together. It's also one of those could also be one of those roles. I just wouldn't be surprised if Chet got fed up with CS a little bit over this period, especially with 100 Thieves not improving to the level where you'd want them, and probably not getting the changes in the lineup that he would potentially want to do. So it's just like a combination of those things, I think, make him want to switch over.
Yeah, and he's still very young, right? Chet's only
like 24, something like that.
I thought he was younger than that.
Maybe even younger, yeah.
Let me have a look here. Oh wait, he's not on HLTV.
24 he is, yeah.
Okay, I thought he was younger than that. Never mind. Still a young
He's
guy.
still the youngest coach in the top.
Yeah.
I think by quite a lot.
And also it's another one of those things, right? If he's an established Counter-Strike name moving over, he's going to be able to net himself a decent chunk of cash to do that. Obviously, it's not all about the money, guys. It's not all about the money, but making those moves in a region that is floundering right now, or if he thinks that things are up with 100 Thieves and they're not going to, have that roster for much longer, or whatever's going on over there, who knows? Maybe he's just trying to bail off of that ship. Now, this isn't a Valorant podcast, so we're not going to hang around on that topic for too long. We're going to continue forward to everybody's favorite drama. To everybody's favorite bullshit. So in between complaining about best of fives, 10 a.m. wake up times, fucking all of that bullshit, we also had the coaching scenario go down. And here we go. There's a bunch of coaches who have been kept on the payroll for these teams. And they've been moved to analyst positions within these rosters. HUNDEN's one of them. Twista's another. starix is one of those names as well. Now, I think Yanko made some tweets earlier in the week. And I'm going to be honest with everybody. I haven't paid much mind to this because, to me, we obviously had Ian Smith on the show. He explained the reasoning behind the bans, the length of the bans in great detail, the standpoint from ESIC on those bans and what it kind of means. And then we ended up kind of having, and this isn't directed at Yanko, this is obviously directed down the line at players slinging shit against each other online, like accusing them of things that we can't prove anyway, and all of this going on. There seems to be a little bit of reluctancy or question marks around why these coaches have been able to retain any job whatsoever after bringing the game into disrepute. Prof, with that in mind, do you maybe have an answer on the side of why they're being kept, even though what they did has such a negative connotation about it?
I mean, I can talk about the ruling and the punishment side. I think that makes most sense. And just think about it. It's easy to say like they weren't punished enough. I can agree to a degree with that. I think that's a reasonable thing to say. But the issue is like, how do you punish them more? How can you actually do that? Is there like, what do these people want? We can make a ruling that they can't be employed or they can't do anything, but you can't actually check for most of these things, and you can't actually deny employment to someone because of an abuse of a bug. Like that cannot be done. And then if you want to say you can't be an analyst for a team, you can't actually check that, and then you're just making a rule that can be walked around, like the meme with the gate and the vac thing, if everyone knows that. Just like it's a small gate, but everything around it is open, so you can just go and do analyst work in the background that no one can know. So it's pointless to make a ruling like that you can't enforce. So then you can start thinking about how you can do it. I'm not really sure that there is a better way to enforce a rule like this than through tournaments, because ESIC isn't partnered with teams, they're partnered with tournaments. So the tournaments can only enforce these coaches not being in the server or not participating in the vetoes and stuff like that. That's the only thing that they can do. Then the responsibility lies on the teams for, let's say, morality or whatever the fuck, to guide them in their actions, right? They need to decide if this was big enough or if this was bad enough to do this or that. And then, of course, the public reaction is going to sway their opinion there as well. So that's my take.
Yeah, and with this right here, you look at going forward, what would it do by removing these? Like, if it was a Valve ban, if Valve come out tomorrow and say, hey guys, we're going to treat these guys the same way we did at iBuyPower. They're banned for life. We'll never be revoking that. This is done. Get the fuck out. Like, we all think, right, that the iBuyPower guys have been pretty hard done by, right? I think that the fact that their ban is a lifetime ban is wild. So do we want to do the same thing to these individuals and just completely remove them? Even like Steel was, after a period of time, able to play again within tournaments that weren't Valve events, right? So no one is questioning whether what these guys did was right. We all know it was wrong. But they've they've been removed from that position of power now where they could exploit something again, and all they can do is watch the demos, prepare their team with strategies, give them information, going into games. I don't know about you, Finn, and obviously it's a little bit closer to home for the mousesports guys, but what do you think about people calling for these guys not to be involved at all?
I think it's an ethical question, right? We had the same issue with Rejin, obviously. He got suspended as soon as we knew about it, because I think that's the right decision to do. Suspend him as soon as possible, not having anything to do with him. I'm going to take care of all the coaching duties while I'm playing. But it comes down to if you're going to keep it or not, right? I feel like there's some instances with the coach where it could make sense. If he had his 3 months, he did it 1 round like a Ruga thing, right? He did 1 round. It was a fast decision. It was 1 round, right? But then you have other coaches doing it for a whole map or 10 rounds in a row. And that's where I start to question the ethical thing about it, right? Because at that moment, you are kind of abusing to a large distinct, right? The other guy was 1 round. I feel at that moment, you have to take it case by case. But as an organization, this is so dangerous to keep your coach. I mean, it backfires so much, right? We have still nothing to do with Alan. Not exactly sure what's going to happen. That's not part of my job. I'm going to get known. It's an organization decision about the sponsors, about everything, right? So him suspended is what it is. And I don't think it makes sense for him to come back with the length of a ban he had and doing anything for mousesports. That's not my place to say or job to say, but it's organization point of view what it makes sense, right? But the other organization, they must have cleared it with their sponsors, because something like this comes up in the news. It comes back at the sponsors in some way that you're supporting somebody who abused the bug and knew was wrong and beat another team, right? So I hope the organization have done that, because else they're gonna get backfire in the sponsor deals they have. But I still think personally it's unethical to let the coach who did something illegal to be kind of the role model for the team. I think that is unethical. Yes, when you're done with your punishment, I think it's fair you come back and do your job, because now you have lived out the situation, right? Right now, you take the AWPer example, right? I mean, if we had the best coach in the world and he got banned, but only 2 terms he can't place the major, I'm like, screw it. I'm still gonna keep him, because he's gonna do a lot more work doing the practice, doing the preparation. That's where you use your coach. Like I would say, from my experience, I use my coach 10% in the server, 5-10%. If it goes bad, if it goes good, he doesn't really come in with ideas. Once it go bad, he might have a call here and there that's gonna change around the momentum and improve the team. But all the work a coach does is before the games and doing practices. This is where you get the impact from the coach. The in-game leader gets the most impact in the official games, but coach before that. And therefore, I feel like banning a coach, you just remove like 1 of his 10 fingers how to improve the team. And that I feel is very ethical Christian, right? How you're gonna treat us as a players. Does the player forgive him or do they not? How is the organization? There's a lot of question marks. So I feel like it's hard to not answer it by case of the coach scenario.
Well,
I agree with that. I just think it comes down to whether you have a different gauge on E6 ruling, right? But whether you think that was too harsh, or whether they didn't take certain things into consideration, like in the Gary case, whether he was actually looking at the match. In some of these cases where there's at least some reasonable doubt as to whether they actually used it to any sort of advantage, I can see how the organizations would think, okay, we believe him. Isig, okay, he's got a ban. We can't really do anything about it, but he can work with us. We don't think he's done anything that bad. So in those cases, I definitely agree that I feel like, or at least I can see why organizations have kept these people, right? But in cases like a HUNDEN, like a Rejin, where it was pretty clear that they were aware of it and used it like multiple times over, I do agree that in those cases it's definitely weird for organizations to keep them in any sort of capacity, because it's just like Karrigan said, it's not even just the morality thing, it's just how it comes back on you from a public relations perspective, from a sponsor's perspective, everything like that.
The heroic case is the best example, right?
Yeah.
HUNDEN did it against Astralis. Danish team, Danish organization. You're turning the whole Danish fan base against heroic by keeping HUNDEN. If you would throw HUNDEN under the bus and say that's not good, then at least you get the respect of the Astralis fans who can still cheer for Heroic every time they play. Every time Heroic playing, Danish fans will scream for that scenario. They're only doing because they had HUNDEN. He's a great coach, but he cheated. Like I don't go into details, but the relationship with the Danish fans, I can imagine, is now Heroic versus Astralis, and it's not about how good the teams are. It's about what Heroic did wrong. You're not talking about in Danish news about Heroic being number 2, pressuring Astralis. There's not really a rivalry there. It's only about the players not liking each other anymore and all the fan base turning each other. It's not the storyline in the game itself anymore. It's outside the game. And I feel that's very sad for the Heroic players because they have been proven to be good players. They have done really great job lately. But this scenario with keeping HUNDEN is taking some of their good public relations they have created over the last few months. And I feel bad for them because they're hardworking.
So just taking a look at the bans right now, I guess the high-profile ones is HUNDEN was banned for 8 months, which is, I suppose, pretty substantial because that's going to take us well and truly into 2021 before he would be able to step back in there. But this is the thing, right? Is what we're saying here is okay. What they did in certain cases, like Twista's banned for almost 16 months, right? That's a long period of time for ENCE to keep him as an analyst for that long, right? That feels like. Well, obviously they've retitled it to analyst and they'll bring like a cheerleader in or something. But that right there is a long ban. Like that's double HUNDEN's ban. And then you've obviously got, we mentioned Rugger there, who's basically 4 months. His was from years ago as well, right? Wasn't his from like 20...
like 4 years ago? Yeah.
Yeah. So like this is when you're saying case by case. If you bring that into the mix, now sure, obviously it's still bad that it happened at any point in time. But it was just
in
one
Rugger's
round.
case, I think it's just exactly in Rugger's case, it was literally one round where they even lost the round, and it was the pistol round. So there's no economic advantage. There's literally no advantage that he got from that. Maybe somebody got a kill based on some sort of, but obviously, like in the grand scheme of things, that's absolutely nothing. And he clearly got out of it and never used it again. So in that case, like obviously, OG are going to keep him. That's just again comes down to how you gauge against E6 ruling.
That's exactly my point as well, right? I remember the situation, or I got called by Robin with the situation that he had a coach bug with us losing 16-1. And what he told me, I can't remember anything about it, but he told me basically he was told by the players to write admins and mute himself because nobody players wanted advantage. And I had one frag. I wish he would have helped me a little bit, maybe. Anyway, when he got banned now. But that's obviously a case as well where you have to take consideration in what degree it's done. And you are able to see movement on the maps. If the code's helped or not. I don't want to go into specific cases, but it's obvious. It's not like it doesn't take a bright CSGO mind to kind of put the dots together if it was abused fully, completely. If the players are aware or not, you have no idea. The coach could have said, this looks like a B execute that did in the demo. Or he could just say, it's B, I saw it in the coach bug, you know? You will never know that. And that's why we should not question the players in that regard. Because we can never know exactly what happened.
Yeah,
because I feel like the Heroic case compared to a Hard Legion, I think there's a 100% difference. I don't know if you saw the Dust 2 clip. That makes zero sense in my brain how the coaches say T-spawn should be clear push, right? I'm not gonna blame people or whatever, but that looks very strange to me. I'm gonna be obvious about that. But the HUNDEN case, I don't know exactly if he told his teammates. I know the intensity of some of the players. Would they say, yeah, just tell us where they're going? You kind of know. As a top player, you don't want to win against Astralis unfair. I can't see it that way. But if your coach is saying, this looks like a B execute, you don't know if he actually said it at coach block, right?
Sure.
So I think we should leave some of the players alone in that sense. That if you don't have really compelling information that I only feel I've seen once, then let the players be alone, because you don't know if the coach actually said the way I'm wording it. Is it be execute or 100% safe info?
This is the thing, right, Prof? And I don't know how you felt about the other day when there was a bit of the mudslinging match going on online. But that right there is very dangerous to do, right? Because I tweeted at the time, those in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. If you're going to put yourself on a moral high ground of superiority, you better not fuck up at any point along the journey, right? Because if, I don't know, there's certain things which other people think are egregious, like trying to use a crowd to your advantage. That some people might go, oh, where's the integrity there? Or some people might go, oh, they're playing to their environment, right? Like that's obviously different in terms of actually having somebody cheat with what is essentially being able to see through the walls. But there's certain things there that you need to just be careful with, and I think the players going around and doing that, and it's similar to when Fallen incited the mob against Furia in my mind a little bit, right? Because these fan bases, they are very fanatical. Their bias comes first, and they will just grab whatever their favorite player or their favorite team says and run with it, right? And look, I don't know about you, Prof. So I'm going to send this question your way, obviously. But doing that from my perspective just felt unnecessary.
We're obviously talking about the Glaive versus KD and mostly drama on Twitter, right?
Yeah, like I get it. You feel like you cheated, and you kind of want to talk about it and bring it up. But it's one of those things where, like karrigan was just saying, it's very difficult to have 100% proof.
I have a dual stance on it. Like I think I actually did a similar tweet to that, but like a month ago or whatever, when initially the information about HUNDEN cheating was announced. My thought was like, why isn't anyone from Heroic saying anything at this point? Like they weren't saying anything. If like you look at the FaZe case, let's say with Robban, you instantly had players from that team coming like, we didn't know anything, what the fuck? So I guess there are reasons why you would just stay silent, even if you didn't know. But I don't know if that happened to me. I think it would be logical to say like, okay, I didn't know anything about this. This is awful. Like, we don't condone this.
Yeah.
I would never stand behind it. So they didn't say anything. They were super quiet until like the rest of the investigation went on. And then a lot of coaches got banned. And then they're just starting to play normally, right? And return HUNDEN to the coaching, not coaching, but analyst role. So at that point, you're like, why didn't they say anything now? Like a month and a half passed, so there's no like super pitchfork drama. You can put out your statement like in a really nice way. You can write it up so it doesn't get taken out of context or anything. So I kind of agree with what Glaive said there. I also think the timing was kind of peculiar, and I don't think it was, I don't know, maybe it was deliberate in a way, because they were obviously going to play like Astralis was going to play Heroic the next day.
Yeah.
If they had to beat mousesports and then play Heroic. I think there is something to it as well, because that definitely affected the Heroic guys like mentally. That thing coming, it's just the same with the Furia Fallen situation.
Yeah.
When someone like that says something, be it reasonable or unreasonable, it's not going to be enjoyable for you to have the crowd essentially against you, right?
They put a lot of, by doing that tweet, they also put a lot of pressure on Heroic, right? And you should, in theory, had pressure on Astralis by not losing to Heroic.
Yeah.
But when I watched the match, I felt it was like Heroic had something to prove.
Yeah.
And they should never had in that position. It has to be Astralis to prove something.
Yeah.
So I feel like I kind of disagree with what you're saying in that sense, that there can be orgs telling you not to participate in any of the statement, because they'll be scared you say something wrong that can hurt you, even though you didn't mean it that way, right? Because right now in this code situation, if you're writing something slightly off that's not a professional statement, you can get attacked from hundreds of fans. So these are young players, and it was against Astralis, so whatever they write, they probably have some common Astralis fans, but they're more Astralis fans than Heroic fans. And if they write something that's kind of just little off, that doesn't make sense, they'll get attacked. And you're gonna go straight on Reddit. Every time you do a statement, it goes on Reddit. You're gonna go investigate. Everybody gonna go into details. What did he exactly mean with that word? So I think these young guys, especially, I feel like if they would have talked about the situation, if they knew about who, not did knew about who, whatever the circumstances are, people are not gonna trust them. So I feel like by not saying anything, they kind of took a gamble, let this blow over. But then it blows up again, and they have to step in and say something now, right? In interviews in Denmark, KDN said something that he feels it's respectless the way that the Astralis player or Glaive in this scenario has treated him, write to him privately, they're friends, right? Everybody knows each other in Denmark. If you have a problem with another guy, write it to him instead on Twitter. where you put all the fan base against one guy. And I can understand Katie in that point. I also understand Glaze's frustration, but you have some responsibility when you have 100,000 followers. The second you write something, everybody's taking your party and go and attack the other guy, and you have to be really careful as a professional player.
Yeah, I think here the more we look into this whole scenario, right? Wasn't there apparently Heroic had the voice comms? Was it from that match? Striker, did you know?
That was what was written. That was written in the statement, the initial statement from Heroic about Wounded's ban about like 2 months ago or something when it came out. I think it was from that match, right?
If it was from the Astralis game, right? Then I think that if they had the voice comm, then they said that they cleared the team of any wrongdoing from that. Like that's one thing that if Heroic didn't want the drama, they could release that even just from that section of the game. Yeah. And that would help. Now, this is one of the things where if you said...
But here comes a question, right? But what if Full said, I think it's going to be B?
Well, if that's the case, right, then I guess we go into that weird little Schrodinger's cat.
Dangerous.
Because then if that was the case, then, like you said, it doesn't take the smartest Counter-Strike brain to be able to work out that whole situation, does it? So...
But the coach would, I've been playing with coaches online when you can't talk, he would say he can see it's going to be B, but he didn't have a coach program. He has something in the demos that tells him this is probably going to be B.
Sure.
And I'm 100% sure every coach is doing that nowadays because he sees something, he's going to say, if the in-game doesn't say anything, he says stack B, you know?
Yeah.
And it has to be a read. He saw something on the way the team is moving.
He's not going to be explaining it for 5 minutes. Yeah, I saw this demo where they did this and this, and now this is this. Impossible. He's just going to say stack B, and you're going to listen.
Looks like B.
Yeah, that's it.
Or block B or something. Throw grenades, you know?
Okay.
That's why I feel like if that happened, and they would show that, that could hurt them even more.
Yeah, true.
And if it didn't happen, I think they would have showed it. So my widely guess is that was the case, that HUNDEN kind of said, I think it's B. The players didn't know. Maybe they knew after. Then they found out he got banned. Oh my God, he was calling perfectly there. I don't know, because that for me also doesn't make sense. That don't put out the file. Here, look at the games. Cut out when HUNDEN is moving the camera, when the info is how they're rotating, right? But it can hurt them even more if they kind of hear HUNDEN say, I think it's B.
Well, I think we'll leave it on that there, because we're never going to get to the bottom of this one by the sounds of things. There's always going to be a question mark around this coaching issue. I'm hoping there's obviously the second release coming out from ESIC late. Was it October?
At the end of October, I think.
So we'll have to wait and see what the findings are there. We obviously know from Ian Smith there's stuff going on with match fixing at the moment, and we've also heard about stream sniping. So lots more to come out, lots more drama to discuss before the end of the year. But let's move forward. Let's continue our little conversation now. We're going to tuck on into EPL. Now, it was the European finals this week just gone.
Can I just bring up something just while we were at the recent news? CSPPA just released the new version of their ranking.
Okay.
I was just reading through this. I wasn't paying attention too much in the last few minutes.
No, that's fine. Do you want to catch us up?
It's just basically they've addressed some of the issues that were very obvious in the first version, and they've just released the second one. Furia is number 1, Vitality number 2, EG number 3, Navi number 4, and number 5 is Heroic. Blah, blah. I'm not going to read out the whole thing, but it's just... From reading the release, it just looks like they addressed at least the most blatant issues of the ranking. Obviously, I would need to look a little bit more into it to assess it properly, but it looks like it's not horrible anymore, at least.
Well, I can see here, I'm just scrolling through it quickly. There's like stuff where they're showing where the points are allocated based on the top 20 teams attending. They've got something going on here with the prize pool. And
they allow the expanded rosters too.
They need to fix this though. CSPPA, if you're listening, you write prize pool. It would be prize pool, I believe, is what you want on your little graph there. So maybe fix that one up there. Who have we got? The player representatives. Daps, 4th. Well, they might need to fix that one right there as well. Okay, maybe we'll dive into that next time round. There's a couple of things they might need to be fixing on that one, but it's as long as MIBR aren't in the top 10. It's probably a pretty good ranking. So that's
I don't think they're even the top.
They probably can't be ranked.
They're not even in the top. They don't have a lineup. I don't think it's there's any question that they should be anywhere.
Thank you. That's all I need. That's all I need to hear. So with that right there, it's positive. We'll bring that up in playtime if we have time to get around to that. But let's dig in right now to EPL. So we may as well start with the man here himself. It was mousesports and karrigan who made it all the way to 4th with a pretty good playoffs run. Actually, a pretty good group stage as well, all things considered. Now, you guys fell to Astralis on the Saturday in a decent series. You know, there was the first 2 maps were blowout, and then the third one definitely delivered. I don't know. What do you want to? Do you have anything you want to touch on from that match, karrigan, or at least from that tournament?
I think like you guys said, we kind of changed style over the course of the tournament, right? It was like first week was group stage, second week was off, and we had the qualify, and third week was the playoff, right? So, yeah, I think not much to say. We just took it game by game. I would kind of say Spirit was kind of surprising factor for me. In our group, kind of made it out. We had to beat Vatel in the last game, made it to playoff, and obviously lost to the 2 teams in the final, NAVI and Astralis. And yeah, I'm just proud we had chances to kind of win those games, because those games are really tough. And we came back. We could have won against Astralis 15-14 from, was it 12-3 to 15-14. We had a chance to close on the C-side nuke, but when it came to overtime, Astralis had more experience than us as players and as a team, as a core lineup, I would say, right? So all I think was a good run from us. Obviously, when you come so far, you want to go the whole way. But if you told me top 4 before the tournament started with 3 days practice before first game, I would say, yeah, sure, I can take that. So all satisfied with the result.
I wouldn't mind dipping back to the groups for a second, because you guys were in Group B, and there were some big names in that group who didn't make it through. The 4 who we were missing were, let's go in order of relevancy. Vitality was one of those names. NIP was one that everybody was really excited to be seeing within the Pro League. And then we had FaZe, and who am I forgetting here? Fnatic as well. So put Fnatic above FaZe. But those 3 names, Finn, what do you think went wrong with those guys?
I think G2 as well.
G2 is in Group A, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but you're right. They were the other big name that were missing from the playoffs, because we had Ents, we had Big, obviously names that, you know, who have Big has been performing well for this year, but Ents is one that wasn't particularly. What do you think went wrong with some of the bigger names, Finn?
I don't know. Maybe some of the bigger names were too deep in Cologne. I think Pro League started right after Cologne, right?
Yes.
Cologne ended Sunday, and Pro League started Tuesday, Wednesday. So maybe some of those teams were so deep in that tournament that they didn't really get to reset probably for the next upcoming matches, right? Because in theory, you only have to win 4 games out of 7, right? And you look at a group, and everybody should be possible to get 4 match wins when you talk about these names, right? So I don't know. We played Fnatic and FaZe to begin with, and I think we won 2-0 both times. Maybe we catch them off guard or something. Maybe they underestimated us, and suddenly you're looking at a loss you shouldn't have had, and then Spirit surprising. And I think like the surprise of Spirit kind of made the group really tough. Because we look at all the other names we played, Complexity was wrecking everyone until we beat them, I think that 5-0 or something like that. So they had a really good run in the group stage in the beginning. Yeah, and I just feel like if you're 0-2 or 0-3 in the group stage, there's a far way back if you have to make 4 wins, right? So maybe some of those teams were under huge pressure when it came to game 3rd and somehow lost to Spirit or something. So yeah, I feel like the pressure maybe have got to some of the teams looking at the beginning of the results where we beat Fnatic and FaZe, where everybody expect us to lose, right? We should have been 0-2 in people's mind from that group stage from beginning, and suddenly we're 2-0. And that puts a lot of pressure on other teams, I think. I think that's the only thing I can remember from the beginning.
I suppose while we're on this topic, what do you feel? Because one of the problems that I have from where I sit is we go in from, at the moment, we're obviously back-to-back tournaments and all that. But if things were a little bit more spread out, and hopefully that's looking that way next year if teams can be more selective with their events. But what do you feel about the format that was run there, and the idea that it seems like from a lot of people they feel like the same format should be run at every event? Do you think it's cool to have different formats for different tournaments?
I think it's cool. I think it's good to change it. I remember when we had Swiss system one tournament, we had another system, another tournament. It made the more excitement of the tournament and not always having the same, not always based off seeds, because if you have 4 groups with 4 teams, if you have bad seed, you're gonna get a really tough matchup. If you have a Swiss system, you might get a tough matchup, but if you win it, you might get an easier one. So I think by switching up the thing is pretty good. I would say the 1 week break is maybe a little too long. I would say 1 week. Maybe you have 3 days. It still kind of feels like the same tournament, right? Because we played the qualifier in between 4 or 5 days, and when we came back to Pro League, it felt like a new tournament. To be honest, it felt like not like now we're in playoff. Now it's time to perform. Now this is where the big dogs are. Everybody's out of groups. That felt like a new tournament. And I'm not sure if other people had the same way, but if you put a 3 days gap, it makes players able to rest maybe, or practice 1 or 2 days, you know? So by having 1 week, you kind of force the players, well, we can't take too much off because we have to perform in 1 week. And hold that week, you need to kind of prepare for the games coming up. So I think that idea is good. But maybe 1 week is too far, but also maybe the 1 week was placed there for the other qualifier to happen because of all the conflicting, right? So what am I to say about the schedule? But I'm just saying if it is in perfect world, I think 3 days would be a good scenario, which I also think Pro League is trying to do, the ESL is trying to do for the next year, where you could go home, but you could also stay if you don't feel burnout. But if you want to go home, you have a child or something happening with your family, you can always go home during that period of time, then come back to the tournament. So I think that's maybe the way to go for future. I'm not quite sure yet.
I think it was also that way from a viewer's perspective, to be honest, especially with another tournament with some of those teams, like you were saying, like the qualifier for DreamHack Open Fall happening in between that. That just means, it's just going to get completely split and it doesn't really have any connection anymore, especially like, looking at you guys after that, really shaky run in the qualifier, looking at what the playoffs were going to be, it was a completely different look from the group stage as well. So it's just like, same feeling here.
I think, like, obviously, from my perspective, I worked it all. So for me, I never had that disconnect. And even when I made that tweet last week, and I think you replied to it being like, yeah, we've got to play the qualifier. I was like, holy shit. I forgot like how much extra Counter-Strike is still going on, right? Because I've now been going 6 weeks straight. And I have another 3 weeks, and then I have a week off, and then I do another 3 weeks at Beijing. And then I have like 2 weeks off, and then it's the global finals, and then it's fucking Christmas. So like I'm like so laser focused on this, I've kind of forgotten about all the other Counter-Strike that's going on outside of it. But that's very true from a viewer perspective. I didn't even consider that. So great feedback. Fuck, I'm going to take that with me. But as we move forward talking about this playoff situation, I don't know if we need to dive too much more into mousesports, Prof. You happy to get into the Astralis heroic stuff?
Let's go on.
Okay, so Astralis heroic. Now, for those people who missed it, the opening matchup in the playoffs was them on the Wednesday. It was the first game on the Wednesday. We saw them go down on Vertigo and Nuke, and it was 2 16-7 victories for heroic. Like, they fucking paddled them, and heroic were looking really, really quite sharp. Now, I made some dumb cliche comment like nothing motivates winners like losing or something the next day when we were talking about Astralis, right? And then they made this lower bracket run. I wanted it to be set up where we could have them go in the grand final. I think the fact we had NAVI versus Astralis meant we had more viewers, so that's fantastic too. But getting to see them play again, and Finn, you were talking about some of this earlier about it felt like heroic had something they had to prove once more. Do we think that this is something that heroic are going to be able to sustain, Prof? Because they obviously did well in Cologne. They did well here. Do you think that this team is going to have longevity about it to keep a rivalry between these two names?
I don't know. Like watching Heroic's wins, especially that one against Astralis, it was a lot of raw skill. A lot of raw skill, literally all across the board. Astralis could not match in those basic duels, I guess you take, that are 50-50. I think Heroic won like 80% of them. And Nico was like wide swinging, peeking left and right all the time, just like completely fearless. And for a reason, because you're winning 6 duels, why don't do it for the 7th, right? You maybe lose it, but you win the 8th. So that's how they played. It's not the only thing that they have going for themselves. You did describe them pretty well as like the mid-round, the fakes and all of that. But the aim needs to be like super sharp, and that is not a thing that remains super sharp for a long period of time. Like that is the thing that is least consistent in all players in CS. So I think that could be an issue for them. But the fact that they got these players, like 3 of them ex North. Borup is North Academy former. KDN was kicked from North, doing the same role he's doing now, in-game leading, AWPing. And North didn't have an in-game leader at the time, which I said was a bad idea. But other people said Valde was going to be the next IGL star. Let's see how that worked out.
Okay, one person said that, by the way. I don't think that was a big consensus on that.
I don't know. I think a lot of people were on that boat. So
fair enough.
Who was going for Valde?
DK.
Oh. I mean, it's not. I mean, a lot of people thought that. It's not like one person. But yeah, and who else did I miss? Someone else was Nico as well, former North player who also got kicked. So those 3 just being super sick now. With Tessus, who was like the optic trial, who couldn't even like do anything in that team with MSL. So it's nice to see all of them clicking together, because obviously they became more than the sum of their parts, right?
Sure. Striker, do you think that KDN's going to have his work cut out for him here? Because sure, he is the most experienced member of this team. He's been playing for years, but now we're talking big boy CS, right? And he has to manage the majority of these younger players. Now, look, Nico has experience. Stound's been in Heroic for some time now, obviously coming up from that Fragsters roster. We know that these guys have played at a serviceable, on the cusp of a top 10 level, but now they're in the deep end, right? Do you think that KDN's going to have what it takes to keep them where they need to be?
I mean, especially with Hunden not being there, at least for the official matches, I feel like it is going to get a little bit more difficult. But at the same time, like Heroic, in these past like 6 months, they've gotten a lot of experience. They've been playing these top teams all over and over and over, and obviously they've been successful for the past 3 months or something since they won Cologne. So it's just, I feel like they're getting to a point where there's not going to be as much pressure on them, and so I feel like it's not going to be as impactful on these younger players on the team. But at the same time, like I said, they're kind of losing Hunden in these official matches, who could have probably caught them down a little bit, helped out KDN with managing these people. So that's probably going to take some effect, but I don't think it's going to be huge.
What about you, karrigan? Do you think that the play style that Heroic have, it has longevity to it?
I mean, I'm watching the streams right now. I'm just thinking to myself, they have so much confidence. It's the duels they take, the risks they take, they're getting out of it because they're feeling the game really good. They're reading they're doing the right things all the time. And I don't know if people have to catch up for them, but if a team plays like that, the only way you're going to beat a team full of confidence is playing disrespectful CS back. You have to put a stopper to them running you over, because right now I see them, there's 20 seconds left on Inferno, they're running down with SMGs, not hunting eco-frags. That shows me the kind of mentality we had in FaZe. Like, we're just going to overrun them. They have no chance if we just come with them, keep pouncing, keep letting them not playing their game. We just play very aggressive and they cannot shut us down. But if a team figures out a way to shut down their fully aggression and also way they're going to sides, I think they don't have anything else. Right now, I feel that confidence is what makes them really good.
I also think...
It's not like I'm looking at Heroic like, oh my god, they have so good structure. Oh my god, they have so good execute, so good timings. It's more like when they go into site, they have really crisp aim, really doing the right decisions, and also oftentimes doing the stupid decision, but it's good in that scenario. If that makes sense. Like, you're doing something, the same was when I played Inferno against Astralis the other day. I just kept pushing him because I read everything was happening. And it was at the right time, at the right moment all the time. But you have 5 players doing that, you're winning everything you can. Like, everybody feeding the game, everybody has the same read of the game, stuff like that, then it's just fun to play. And FaZe in New York comes to mind when people got 6 round average against us. It's not like I had to call super good. It was just, we somehow just got in really good positions all the time where it didn't really matter because it just fractures coming left and right all the time. And I feel that's happening with Heroic right now. They might be a really good team, but I'm not sure they can keep up this level of form. But probably a top 10 team during the next year where they are stable. Because I feel they have been outside top 10 since, from beginning of the year, basically. They're outside, really good at pressuring people. They might get a win here and there. But right now, they're contender to be a stable top 5 team. But right now, I just have to wait and see how it works. If they have a bad period of 1 or 2 tournaments, what's going to happen to the confidence of the team.
And when it comes to those 2 games, the difference between those 2 games between Astralis and Heroic, where Astralis got destroyed in the first time and the second time was a lot more closer, I feel like dupreeh was a huge part of that, just because in the first game, as far as I remember, he just got outdueled at every turn, basically, while in the second game, he was in an amazing form. He was just starting to win those duels. And when you're entry fragger, like, quote-unquote, obviously, with Astralis, it's a little bit more nuanced, but still, he is the most aggressive player on that team, probably. When you have a player like that in form, it's just going to turn a different way than when he isn't. If you get entries into sites, you're just going to get opportunities, unlike in the first game where he just got destroyed.
Yeah, one of the things that we noted when Astralis was smashing complexity was how on point their aim looked, and I was like, oh, maybe we put that down to how janky things are for complexity now with the stand-in. But then when they moved into the mousesports game and they kicked it off on Dust 2, I was like, holy shit, like they're online. Like, you were seeing what makes the Astralis individuals good, because you got fucking Rops running around with the Galil smashing everybody's fucking head off, but then you have dupreeh coming in and hitting every shot as well. And like, yeah, that's a good point, because dupreeh, I think, from that complexity game onwards, just had like awesome ratings. Even in the final, I think he was second highest rated for them, tied with Magus just under device there. So he really did come alive in that one. But this actually is one thing I wouldn't mind running past you as well, Finn. Now, I would say bet, but we're not allowed to. So what I'll say is, gun to your head, in a hypothetical world, if you had to say what you think is going to happen with this Astralis 5-man roster for the rest of the year, what do you think is going to happen? 7-man roster, sorry.
I think they're gonna compete really good. I mean, if there's someone who can make it work, I think it is Astralis. They have the legacy, they have the players, and also I don't think they want to end in a scenario where it kind of feels like VP and a PO again. By doing this, they get a fresh look. They keep the players motivated. They keep the synergy on the team the same way, but with a little spice of Tech and Boopski. I'm not saying all the players are staying or whatever, but I feel like by this, you maybe do one. It's gonna happen one day. Astralis not the same 5-man lineup, right? So by doing this, you maybe stretch it out longer for 2 or 3 years, or a half year or a year. I don't know what's happening there, but I can just imagine it kind of helps them not in a situation where they have to throw a guy out who was MVP one year ago or 6 months ago because it's going so bad. But I think it's hard for any of those 5 guys to throw one of each other out. To be honest, because they're so close, they've been through so much, they know they can come back. So, and they always do, right? And I also feel like when you're talking Heroic Astralis rivalry, I mean, I have to wait 1 year before I can call it rivalry, because Heroic is just coming up. I don't think we should use a word like rivalry when it's just started. You know, that there's no beef. If Krieg was there, maybe there could be some beef about the situation, right? Because I feel like rivalry either creates outside the server, like people left or people against each other, and you see that on the server, or you see multiple teams going against each other. One team never wins, then it becomes a rivalry, but a one-sided one, right? And I feel Heroic Astralis only started now where Heroic can even compete with Astralis. So right now, I feel like maybe also that rivalry kind of thing make the Astralis guys really mad and just want to smash Heroic next game. Because how do they even call it rivalry yet when it's normally been one-sided for many years, right?
Sure, I think that the tweets definitely helped. With like this is the
storyline.
Yeah, so now we have something to kind of work with going forward when they do go head to head. But in terms of the matchup, we've seen it twice. We saw that within the same week. We can get it a couple more times going forward, I hope. But narrowing down a little bit more, do you think with the 7-man roster they will chop and change players? Because apparently, I didn't know this. Once again, my vision's been very fucking tight on in. For the RMR event, they've signed up with Esatag and they can't change players for that one, right? So they have to use him. That's going to take
them. We did say that on the show. Literally, Striker did explain that to you on the show like two episodes ago.
I'm exhausted. I'm not going to lie. I have 0 days off a week. So give me a break. All right, just give me a fucking break. But with that, do we think that's right? Because we were trying to make the bet with Striker. That's right. My memory's coming back to me. Do you think, Finn, that they'll change any players around, or they'll just play with Esatag for the rest of the year?
It's very hard to say, right? I think right now when they're winning, it doesn't make sense to change a winning team. Maybe they will change. I don't know how they're going to practice this, right? Because at some point, if I was there, I would play Mirage. I would have a lineup set for Mirage. So when a team is better, Mirage will swap that in and just play the best of 3 where like Mirage is going to wreck the other team, right? But I don't know how exactly they're practicing. But it doesn't make sense to change SH3 Tech or someone else right now unless they have to. because they're winning, right?
Sure.
So they lost the first game with Bubski, and since that they put this Treytag in and they played with him the whole time.
Yep.
So maybe they try that Bubski give another chance in the beginning of the Pro League, but then they switch lineup, right? So I would say it depends if you're winning or losing and how the team feels. Like I said, I think they are the first one to could make this work. Also, how the lineup is in the situation, been together for so long time, right? Those three guys, Supnex, Dupree, and Device, was it 6-7 years now we're looking at? They've been together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2013. So
Yeah,
a long
that's
time.
a long time.
A
Right?
fucking
You had the
long
same
time.
call, right? And
Yeah.
VP couldn't call that together anymore either. Or NIP. Or they tried now at least back together for a month or two.
We'll see how long that one lasts for. But I suppose we can move along to the grand final now. Striker, Prof. I know you're a massive fan of best of fives. What'd you make of it?
Was great. I managed to not fall asleep, so that's good because it started at 5 p.m. So it was in my sleeping schedule. That's good. Was a good game. It was a good game. I can't say I didn't want it to be like 3 maps max or something like that. I think fuck it. I don't want to complain about best of fives, especially in double elimination. There is nothing else you can really do to make it fair, I feel like.
You can complain on Twitter though. That's pretty good.
Do you want to take this?
Always an option.
I feel like
I got my rage out when the mics were off, so I'll let him live today, and we'll see if he rears his head again.
I mean, obviously, it was also like 4 pretty competitive maps, so it'll just go on for long, and the breaks could maybe be a bit shorter, just like cut the analyst desk. What are those guys there for?
We don't know. Honestly, we don't need it because we're doing the whole game. Legit. Like, if we didn't need the Twitch ads to pay the bills, fuck yeah. Like, I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. Obviously, the extended break between the 3rd and 4th map, we do that for the best of fives on LAN anyway, to give the players a little bit longer break to get some food and rehydrate and stuff, because it is long. But the game itself, right, Striker, if we're looking at NAVI, they fucking dropped the ball, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, they had a fucking... Well, actually, there was like...
13-9 or something on Nuke, I think it was.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. They dropped that, and then they obviously had another chance to close it out on Train, even though they lost the first half to 13. They almost made the comeback on CD side, and then they dropped the ball again. Like the 2 chances I think they had. I think they had one in at least one in the first overtime where they had a match point. I feel like it even happened in regulation, but I might be wrong. But obviously they had plenty of chances to close it up way earlier, way before it got to the last map. So for sure, drop the ball.
Were you impressed with NAVI at least performing online, Striker? Like, did you think, oh, this is a nice change? Obviously, the group stage they were playing fantastically as well, but it looked like as a team, at least for the majority of the moments, there wasn't just a simple and electronic show. Obviously, they're at the top of the scoreboard, but the other players were contributing.
Yeah. I mean, generally, I feel like they played a very good game. It's just, they didn't really have the, I don't know what to call it, but they just couldn't close it out at the right. Exactly, they just couldn't close it out at the right moment. They just didn't have those big plays when they needed them the most, when they needed them to close out the series, and that's about it. I feel like I was pretty impressed with how NAVI played in general and how the individuals played.
I feel like they lost some bad clutches to Device. The nuke 1-on-2 for Device to close things out, and then the overpass 1-on-2, especially considering that was against Electronic and Simple. Like, the fact that we're saying that's like 3 of the absolute best players in the world left in like that scenario is pretty cool. That didn't hit me at the time.
I feel like Electronic misplayed a couple of clutches, the 2v2s as well on overpass, like on the B side. Just like there's that one, I think that was when Astralis got onto 15 on overpass, when there was like a 2v2 or something, very low on time. Electronic was around the dildo, of course. I don't know how people call it.
We call it the pole these days, mate.
Much better, I guess.
Keep it safe.
Playing around the pole, he was just like spinning on it, right? And it just overpeaked. If he stayed alive for like 2 seconds, literally just hiding behind the pole, it would be perfect, right? Yeah. So I don't know. Also, but it's not that lost in the game. It was those fucking T-sides, man.
Oh yeah.
What the funniest thing is, And then you see one of the 15 rounds on T-side, they actually go fast and they win it. But you can't actually use that as a metric of anything because, of course, they're going to win that round because no one expects them to go fast, right? And then you do it one round, you're going to win it because everyone's saving utility. We even saw, I think, on Nuke, when S-Tag just dropped a molly on ramp at like 25 seconds, won the round. Literally won it with that one molly because they're in trophy room at 25 seconds. So, GG boys. Like, I don't know. A lot of questions were actually for karrigan. What do you think about the NAVI T-side? So there you go.
I mean, I often feel either it works or it doesn't for NAVI. That's how I see it, right? Because their style is pretty annoying to play against. Because sometimes there's this contact really fast, or they're just playing the slow pace and there's 20 seconds left, they come up short on Inferno, you have no utility to block them anymore, and you just kind of feel like you have to take the duel, or you play passive, they search you a really good way of running into sight. So overall, I never really have an issue playing Navi style-wise. But often it's the clutches they come through with, I feel that wins them game. That's huge play from Electronic and Simple. I also feel like a player you don't talk about much is the Perfecto guy. Why is people not talking about how good he fits into the Navi style? I never see Perfecto in his young age of his career doing any mistakes. It's not like you're watching Perfecto and say, like, what the hell is he doing? It's not often I sit like there. He might have an aim failure too, but he's playing it really smart for what Navi needs for the team. I feel like that's how I feel like is a very key component to Navi.
I think he did well in the grand final, especially on
He
train.
had a
Like
shit rating over the series,
but that's always going to happen. He's just like that kind of a player that's not going to go for any plays.
Like, but he's really important to the team. That's what I feel like often goes on the radar, even if he has like a pretty okay rating, but there was some key rounds he played it perfectly with the time or whatever, but he fits really good into the Navi playstyle, which I think makes sense because you don't need a high level fragger. You have Electronic, you have Simple, who is always gonna deliver for you, and you have Bomber going off sometimes in the frag, and also Flamey is a very inconsistent player lately, but I don't feel they need more firepower. I just feel like maybe they need a little other style they can surprise Pew with, because they are easy to read, but they're still hard to counter. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I get what like even if you know it's coming, you have to be able to stop it, right?
Yeah.
And if you can't, like, it's difficult to stop Simple and Electronic from finding those entries. And that's the thing is, like, when we watch them, and even if those two just have deagles, at any moment, I think that Navi can win one of those rounds. I think on that Perfecto point there, who was it? Was it Simon Gaming he was in before? Which team was it that was in before we went to Navi? I feel like why do I feel like it was Simon? Yeah, because I remember it was this time last year when we were doing the Berlin Major and we were doing the minors, and I was watching him, and he just felt like a safe pair of hands in that team, in the sense of he was a bomb site anchor when they'd come his way. Obviously, different kettle of fish regarding the teams they were versing. But he would always, get a multi-kill. I remember I had the pleasure of casting some of those games back there in the minor, and I got to watch quite intently. So I saw what he was capable of before coming into Navi. But I think when I watch him in this team, I still feel like he's kind of been given... Obviously, you need someone to do these kind of jobs, but I don't know if they're... he gets left in a lot of clutches, and sometimes his clutch statistics look good, sometimes they look bad. And I find as well he seems to be dropping a lot of guns across, which I don't know if I love that. Like, Boomage is happy to play with the MP9, and he's going to drop guns across every day of the week. But like this is the problem I have with Navi is I understand why they run the style that they do. You got the two sharpest tools in the shed, right? So you're going to run them as the key, right? If Simple and Electronic are popping off, which most of the time Simple is, and in recent times, Electronic, he was a little bit down, but now he's back on more of a high recently. If he can continue that form, that's great. Then sure, you kind of, it's kind of like two fucking... Do bulls have horns? Yeah, they do. Like, they're just running in, right? They're just running in to just fucking smash the opponent apart, and then everybody else just has to do their job. But if that playstyle's not working, it doesn't feel like they have another gear. Like, especially on their T side, right? Their CT side, sure, like Flamey was looking a lot better. His aim was looking good. His secondary AWPing on train was good. But it doesn't feel like they have a second gear on their T side. It doesn't feel like they can change it up and be more strat based, like actually have like a geeky set execute, like one of the pocket strats you guys always have, Finn. You always have some fucking pocket strat that you've been tinkering with. I'm sure you're in the shower there scrubbing away and you've gone, boom, this is it. That's what I want to run. And it's surprised we don't see that from Navi, considering Blade's history. And I know Blade in the past had to work with some really dull tools, right? Like he's working with the world edits and the fucking Waylanders and that kind of stuff. So his executes with those guys have to be on point, and they're going to win through that. But imagine Navi throwing like a picture perfect execute and then Simple coming in only having to check 2 lines and just headshot. Like, why don't we see more of that? I don't understand why they haven't added that to their gameplay, and I don't know if time can be. Or we're in fucking October. What do you make of the quandary of Navi, Prof?
I agree with what you said, especially the sharp tools and the dull tools. I like that analogy, pretty good. I don't know. It's the same thing. Like it's literally the same thing. Like they should be able, with everything they have, to have more on the T side. And these T sides, when they go bad, they go super bad. And we saw it in 2 maps, I think, in the grand final, which were like complete blowouts. And then on Overpass, they got something going. I really have no idea. Is it a boomage thing? Why online is Blade maybe not calling something? Can Blade simply not call because what he wants to do doesn't align with the team? I have no idea.
I think that's pretty much what it comes down to, because from interviews that I saw with Blade over the past, I don't know since when he became the actual coach of this team, and when Boomich came in and everything around that, I feel like Blade doesn't always get to impose his will on the team, and they just kind of do what they like to do. So I do think that it comes down to differences between maybe not just Boomich himself, but just the entire team and Blade behind them.
I was having a meltdown when I was watching the mousesports comeback, Finn. I'm watching how much room they're giving to you on your T side. Here you go, have banana for free. You want brackets? Have it for free. We won't even fight you. And then you've got these little keen marine fucking riflers just rolling in like, yeah, cool. You're either going to be pit, you're going to be sight, you're going to be here, you're going to be there. And you guys are just running in and just shredding them. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And I don't know if that's because last season of Pro League or earlier in the year, Boomich got found out because all he did every round was play sandbag, and he just got naded, Molotov, dead every single time. And now it was like, well, we're not going to fight, we're not going to take any control. And I'm like, you've got some of the best players in the world. Like, you could establish banana control, leave Simple there with the AWP, force mousesports to respect you, and then stack your other 4 over towards A, like stuff they used to do with Zeus in the team. And there was none of that. And I was like, what is going on?
Like, you don't know how many times I called after a 5-0. Okay, let's double nade in the Muller. I'm gonna expect some aggression right now. I kept calling that for 6 rounds, because when you're losing C-side Inferno, at some point you're saying, okay, screw it all. Let's push them, because they're outplaying you, right? The worst feeling as C-side, and we tried that like few days in a row on Pro League, was if the T's are playing correct on Inferno, you get played with like a little toy. You have no idea what's happening exactly on the map, because they're pushing you away with the utility, or you're too scared to take the duel because you don't have the, I would say, balls to fight the banana, right? Because you have to take the banana to go. You have to make damage. If you don't, the execute that comes in B, everybody at this level knows how exactly to execute B. If there's an AWP, you know which execute you do. If they have rifles with smoke and muller hand, you know how to bait it out. And then suddenly time runs down, it gets to pressure, and you have no idea if T's are going right because you get scared to push. And I don't know why they didn't adapt. And the way they adapted was not how I expected. It was just still playing the same style and just hoping they could win one of the clutches. Like, obviously, also under the pressure there, when you have to do this big comeback, at some point I'm going to read the game wrong, right? Even though I'm trying to figure out, okay, now they have to adapt. And then they don't adapt, but then I adapt my call in around very late seconds, because I didn't expect them to still play the same. And that's what I think about Navi is, they're one of those teams, on especially the T-side as well, they don't build patterns up for you. Every team has a specific pattern. They build up, then they break the pattern. And you don't never know when they're going to break it, and that's where you make it. You sometimes statistics, okay, when it's key round, they break that pattern. If it's an important round, they do exactly this because they go back to the comfort zone. Navi is very strange in that scenario because they make strange buys all the time. They have 2 AKs. You don't have to buy next round. They buy again. I think on those 2 was 1-1, and suddenly it's 5-1, and we played against 2 times 2 AKs. They didn't have an AWPer symbol yet. And I don't know where the decision making is there, but that is really strange. When you have one of the best AWPers, get the AWP as soon as possible in his hands, because that's how you win the game. Like you guys said, Electronic and Simple are the 2 best weapons in your strat book. And that also kind of hurts them sometimes. I feel like when they can't rely on this, okay, if we do this execute now, doesn't matter if we don't have an AWP, we just have to get out there, get simulated third or fourth guy, he'll refrag, we put him in a clutch situation, he wins that clutch. That's how we do with Rubs. If I feel like he doesn't get in the game, I set up execute to get him in the game. Because if he's the fourth or fifth guy out, he'll play out the information and clutch out the round that he needs to get back in the game.
All right. I think that's very insightful stuff, because I don't know if you watch the VOD back. You probably just watched the demo. I wouldn't waste your time with the VOD. But I'm like sitting there just like, oh, NAVI, what the fuck is happening? But NAVI, grand final, Astralis, it was all over. Reverse sweep, technically, I suppose. We got any closing thoughts on this before we move to playtime, Prof Striker?
Nope.
All right, no closing thoughts. Lucas, are you with us? Play the playtime bumper, my friend. Alrighty then, so now we're into the part of the show where things get a little bit freer, and you guys at home have been sending in questions for karrigan, so we're going to start with those and we'll see where we end up. So, Prof, take it away.
This was a topical one because it includes a lot of us. It was for karrigan, but you were there. It says about Machine and Astralis interviews being bad. Is the media training that is at fault, or is it the wrong kind of a question? Is there a language barrier? Definitely not a language barrier. So how do mouz think, act about media training? I guess it's a kind of all over the place. I don't know if you caught the interview last night with Esatag, right? Sponge asked him something about, I don't even know, something about adaptation.
I'll fill it in. I'll bring us up. So the grand final, we asked for Esatag for the interview because he was the newest boy, obviously not to the roster, but with that core 4. The opening question from Alex was like, how do you feel? You know, you've just done this, and he was obviously quite happy, and he was like, yeah, I'm very happy. You know, I don't have any words for it. So we've gone with the emotional angle there, and he wasn't able to like give us much, right? Like in the sense of you could be looking for something along the lines of, yeah, you know, we worked really hard. The lower bracket run, you know, there's a lot of things that could be said. Also, Esatag to this level, sure, it's he's getting put in front of the headlights in the grand final. For him, he hasn't won a lot of things in his career, so it obviously was quite a big deal. Then we pivoted away from the emotional questions because we got nothing into Counter-Strike questions. That's the way you go. If you want to make a Counter-Strike player feel comfortable, you go into Counter-Strike questions. So the first one I went with was a softball, right? And the softball was setting him up, right? It's a positive one. You want to pump him up so then he maybe be a bit more open with you. So I'm like, dude, like you on train, you know, you've throughout the group stage, you guys were undefeated on this. You went 3-0. You were the highest rated performer for them on that map through the group stage. What looks so good about you on train? And he gave us a really good answer on that one. That was, you know, like I watched a lot of demos on this. It was, I guess, I play in my own positions. Also, there's clutching involved, and apparently, you know, I'm doing pretty good in those clutches. And that was a good one there. And then I went a little bit more specific because one of the keys to that train victory was the aggression that Astralis were going with, right? They were doing the low ramp push, nutmegging up through that smoke. They were doing the pop dog push with Dupree, pushing into main. Megas was pushing Ivy. I highlighted that in the post-game segment. So I said, oh, that question, that was that to rattle NAVI, you know, kind of teeing it up in the sense that that question would give him room to go, yeah, we know like NAVI struggle in the mid round if they, you know, lose some opening picks or just something along those lines, because the game had already happened and they'd already won. Right now, it's not like they had any more matches to play within that tournament. And I understand Astralis always keep a lot of that stuff close to their chest. They don't like giving, or every time I remember we interview like Zonic, he's like, oh, we can't tell you that, you know, and that's fair enough. I get that kind of stuff. But it kind of didn't give us anywhere else to go with the interview because it's not that he shut us down, and I think that his answer was a little bit more open than interpreted. Like I think it was he said something along the lines of, oh, you know I can't tell you that, but you know something like that's what happened in the game. So implying that was the game plan. So then for me to find more questions after that, like I wanted to ask about them constantly blowing the door off on overpass, I think it was, for connector control. I think that's what they were doing, if I remember rightly. But as he's obviously not going to tell me that either. So I didn't really have any more questions at that point. So now we can pivot to you, Finn, in terms of the media training for your boys, being all young players and stuff. Is there any media training?
Not as far as I know. Maybe Astralis has a different team on how to handle it. I think it's also come down to the player comfortable giving away some information he might not want to give away, or the coach or the team doesn't want to give away, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, for example, for me, when I did this all the time on train, I didn't want to give away what exactly my job was. But I mean, everybody figured out after a month or two what the plan was the whole time, right? So, like you say, if they don't want to say exactly what they're doing, it is just protect themselves to not have a problem with after the thing, right? For me, I'm fine talking veto because every time I talk veto about this overthinking stuff, people think I'm overthinking, and then I just go with the safe choice. So it depends how you want to spin it, right? Because if you give out a secret, you probably also have another secret in your pocket. So
And you can just play mind games off it too.
Yeah,
that's something you've done a lot.
I mean, yeah,
it's part of one. You don't know if I'm serious, or you think that's the only thing I have, or maybe I have 3 more hands in my pocket. But it's not like I'm gonna tell you. You never know. But that's something you have to build up over time, right? Because everybody say I'm very honestly meant to, but sometimes also the point of being honest is that I want people to know so I can rethink other things, right? So it makes sense that he wants to be quiet to be sure he's a new guy, not doing something radical.
What just from your perspective, Finn, and not necessarily questions for you to answer, because as you said there, you are well considered in the answers that you do and don't give. What do you think are good kind of questions in post-game interviews, or what direction? Because this is something with, like, for us, we're not like the way that we're doing these broadcasts at the moment is just the three of us, and we're basically making everything up as it comes to us, right? This is ad lib. We're just whatever we're riffing with, whatever I saw in the game, whatever Alex feels he can get out of the player. That's kind of the direction that we take this. Do you have anything that, if you feel would be a nice question to ask, or at least answer?
I think it's very tough, right? It depends on what the mood of the player has, how he reacts. Every time you do interview with Finnish guys, I just pray to God you get something out, because they're just yes and no. And I think as an analyst and not being an interviewer, which normally on LAN you would have an interviewer asking the right questions, having this the professional job that you interview the guy on the stage or whatever, he's doing exactly what his job is. But you as an analyst, you want to be very technical, and sometimes you ask the players and he might not remember the round, or he might not even have thought about what you said is the plan. Sometimes I do a game plan and the players don't even know why I have the game plan. So if you would ask about my game plan, they might have said, yeah, Finn had some good reads, he prepared the demos, and he knew what we had to do. But he might not remember exactly what I said before, because there's so much pressure. And also, you're talking to a straight tech guy who just played a final of how long it was? 5 hours?
5 hours, like long.
It's not fun to do it into after. You sometimes in that moment you wish not to do it. You want to chill down, read some Twitter, read the social media, reach out to your friends and family. That's not the right time, and that can also kind of destroy the interview in my perspective. He doesn't want to give too long answers and insightful because he wants it maybe to get over with.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure. I didn't see it into.
I know from like our perspective, a lot of the times going in with pre-game interviews, knowing how close it is to match start, especially in the playoffs. Like, from my opinion, and as somebody who used to be a player, I would fucking hate to do that, because I understand why the broadcast, they want to get it on, because it adds something to the pre-game segment, and the people at home, that's what they want to see. They want to see the players, right? So putting face to a name, you're hearing from them and stuff. But like, a lot of those days there, I was like, man, like, we really shouldn't be trying to get them on for interviews. We should probably just let them focus on the game type thing. Now, it's a weird trade-off. If it was like in passing as you're walking up to set up, or when you're at the playoffs, traditionally at these events, you're not sitting down at the desk all the time. You're going to go out with enough time before the game. So I think it's probably just a bit of a symptom right now of the online environment, which is the excuse I'm chalking everything up to at the moment.
But yeah, that's a good point, because I actually do mindfulness in front of my pro matches, and suddenly when I had to do interview, I had to do my mindfulness before the interview, going relaxed into interview. Then I kind of get stressed because, on the other hand, I had 2 minutes to disconnect my webcam from my computer, connect it to my laptop, to go on the Discord, to show myself for the stream. And then I just took my head up and I see we're going live. And I was like, straight 10 minutes of kind of stressful, where it's supposed to be calm.
Yeah.
And all the other days when I didn't do interview, I had 40 minutes after the veto, make sure everybody knows what to do, join the server, get the drinks I need, go to toilet, do my mindfulness, come in, full relax. But when I had to do interview, I could feel the stress in my body, because it's not pre-recorded, it's live.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Yeah, I think maybe I'll suggest in the future, maybe we shift the interview into the pre-game segment we do, which would then give you like a 15-minute buffer.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not it's not great, but at least then it's a bigger buffer to be able. So I'll suggest that to the powers that be and see if we can shift those things
at that point, but still run it like right ahead of the tournament, like Blast did for the spring series.
Sure. Well, some of the problems we have is time.
Yeah, the live is also better, right?
Yeah.
Because you might get to ask about the veto or something as well. If something changed last minute. So I think this putting it so you don't directly come from. I was on the server closing the thing. I had 3 minutes to do everything. So if I had 50 minutes, that would make me okay. I still have 50 minutes to. Is something coming up? Whatever it could be, right?
So how just curiously, how far before the match do they do the veto? 40 minutes?
Yeah, 40 minutes.
Okay. So realistically, like for me, I'm going to be honest with everybody at home. The whole veto thing, like it's cool to talk if there's an actual interesting veto, like, oh, they've risked this map, they've left it open, will they punish pick? Oh, they haven't, like, that's cool. But that barely fucking happens. Normally what happens is everyone goes comfort pick. Okay, well, we're both happy with Inferno, that's the third, right? That's normally what happens. I would love to be able to know. I wish we had the veto like an hour in advance. I don't know where the threshold on that would be, but if we had it like an hour before the show goes live, that would mean that I could sit down. I could go, okay, we're looking, because right now I don't think people understand exactly. But if I'm going into a matchup between two teams, let's narrow it down to 6 maps per team, right? Everyone's got a permaban. From there, I need to now think about, okay, from these 6 maps, which is it likely to be? Okay, it's likely to be these 3. And then there might be overlap, so let's go with 4. And to be safe, we should probably prep 5. Okay, now I want to prepare CT side. This is the positions they hold. These are the traditional strategies they run. And this is what could work against them. With a little bit of extra time, I could maybe actually do that. But right now, the veto comes through and I'm like, okay, remember, mousesports here. I've got notes and shit. But like the thing is, I would be flicking through the book. I'd be doing this. I'd be doing that. If I had the veto, yeah. How early do you reckon the veto could be done, Finn, without it being too detrimental for prep?
I think the earlier the worse for the players, because I think 40 minutes is a good buffer. Because if I surprise someone in the veto, right,
they can't recover from that. Yeah,
can't recover for it. If you give them a 2 hours gap, suddenly he can prepare for 1.5 hours, and it doesn't matter, right?
That's true.
So I like it at LAN because you just go out there, you have set up, everybody's ready. You go to the veto and you say, surprise.
Yeah.
They have no chance to do it. They might have an analyst at home doing the work, but it's not the coach itself doing it.
Sure.
He has to really rely on the analyst info. The coach always want to double check the analyst work, and the coach, the in-game leader wants to double check the coach. There's like kind of like this line where you trust each other, but you rather want to have done it yourself.
Yeah, I love. Well, obviously for me, it didn't happen internationally as much because of the events I played in. We didn't have vetoes where you could do it like that. But I remember domestically, like pulling something that you've been working on out of your pocket, or you float your permaban, and will they go for the punish, and you counter strategy them and shit, and you're ready to go. Like that's such a sick feeling. You've baited them into something here before, and that's even before you ever get the server. Like, that's half the fun of being an in-game leader doing that shit. Prof, do we have any other questions for karrigan coming through?
Let's do one more. This question was about Navi, but we'll just expand it. So because karrigan is known for putting players in exactly the right role to make them shine, and the question was how would he role-wise fit Navi? But I think we talked about Navi quite a bit, so we can pick any other top 10 team. And how would you shuffle the roles to like extract more from the team?
How about FaZe?
That's a sick experiment.
I'm sorry, but that's the one that needs fixing.
Nico,
well, let's say the current lineup, right? How should they have fixed it in a way that would work instead of putting Kirby in a position where he hasn't really played
they
before?
Can't. They have too much role conflicting. That's how I feel. If you want to keep the lineup, I have played with Kirby. He is, I would say, a really good second, third guy into the side. He's good at refracking. He's not fast, he's not scared when he gets in a position, but he doesn't want to go first, right? But the big issue is you don't have an insane anti-fragger or the right guy running in first, doing the run path. Rejin was one of the best second guy I ever played with. That's why I ran in first with him all the time. I knew this guy's gonna refract me. And I feel like that's what they kind of lost FaZe. They don't have this guy sacrificing. And if you are for superstar players, one guy has to take the sacrifice role, because when you go into a site and all the players are shoulder peeking and you're on Inferno short and you play a guy team with utility, you're dead. Like, you're getting flash, you get Molotov hate you need a guy making the space. So once you run into the side, you know if he's in right side, in pit, or he's in side, because then you can refrag. So I think that has been one of the main issues. I still think leading wise, they played good. Nico is not a bad in-game leader. They are playing good CS. But once when it matters in the mid round, when somebody has to run first or go into the side, I think that has been the main issue.
So do you think they would? Do you think they would have made it work better with Bymas in more of an entry fragger role?
Yes, for sure, for sure.
Okay.
Bymas might not have been as good as now, because Bymas is not always first. He's first, second, or third, right? So often the first guy in is dead. Like on Inferno short, when you run up short, unless the flashes are picture perfect and perfect timing, you get the frags. But let's say 8 out of 10 times that's not true. One of them is somehow not blind, kill the first guy, then gets blind. The second guy from your teammate comes in, refrags you. So yeah, I think that would have worked, but that would also put Nico in a more passive in-game leader role. As an in-game leader, when I played with him, he had the luxury of me being the pack. So when Nico was calling or took it from me, he was an A lurker Mirage as a caller. And that's because I was in middle controlling how we take mid. So he will take, let's do middle default. I'll take mid control, say exactly what flash, I'll flash for you connector, Rain, you get up connector, and then I'll wait for Nico's call in AWPs. I will give him all the information, the small details I saw, but I would not make the call because I would not overstep his boundaries. So when they replaced me, they might just think, okay, Nico takes my place, Adrian or whatever, still playing the same. And I think they realized the information at the small micromanage I did while Nico was calling was never the same way play the took, because my specialty is micromanaging. And you need a guy, an in-game leader who's micromanaging. Even though you have big superstars in the team, you need to micromanage them in a way where you say, okay, I'll strafe for you, come with me. And the other guy's saying, yeah, sure, just go first, I'll refrag you, He will not, it's really hard for me in a perspective to say, Rain, go, I'll strafe you, unless he's low, or I'm low, so he has to strafe first, I refrag. So I think that is what FaZe needs the most, or needed, I don't know what's going to happen in the team, is somebody who takes up and sacrifices a little more than everyone else. Because everybody in the team, player for player, they're so good. Like, you can pick any of those players, you can put them in a top 10 team, you say, he will make it better, in that role, right? So it's very strange in that regard, but I think that's what they need, a kind of a taco guy, right? Who makes space for CodeZero to be a very good player, right? Or something like that. I don't know, a Stuco guy maybe you could put in there, who is doing some of those shit roles, but now he's not doing that anymore. But that's what he did in mouz, and he did I would say, okay job. He wasn't the best player, but everybody knows you cannot have everybody plus 10 in frags. It's impossible. Somebody's gonna do the B Mirage. And they never come there equal. They always come underground mid or whatever, right? When they come B, they come 5 guys. They never come one-on-one like on A Mirage where you get the duel all the time. So yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway from FaZe.
Okay. Prof, anything else? You want to leave it there?
No, that's it. Well, let's not go too long today.
Sure. All right. Well, Finn, we're going to open the floor up to you now. I don't know if you want to say anything to the fans, or if you have a message for the community, or you want to call someone out and try and get a title fight lined up or some shit in the UFC style. But if you have anything you want to say, now would be the time.
I'll just say thank you for everyone tuning in today. It's been awesome to be part of the show here. You guys are doing a great job. Also, I think it's important to have these discussions with different guests coming with different views. It's a privilege for me to be on here to kind of make my voice heard by someone else than just myself. So all in all, thanks to all the fans following mousesports and kept believing in us, even though it didn't look good when we changed some players and in the mid of the year. So everybody stay positive during these times, and one day we will all get back to LAN and hug each other and sign some autograph again. And I wish you well.
Perfect. Well, that's a great way to leave things off here for episode 10 of HLTV Confirmed. We'll be back next week on the 12th of October, but we're going to be back at 8 p.m. So we're going to be doing the regular time slot. Man, that's going to fucking kill me. Anyway, we're going to be doing the regular time slot next Monday. Tonight, I'm going to say it in case you tune in for half the show. You want to get the rest of the show played to you again. We're going to be streaming it back on Twitch at 8 p.m. as a bit of a rerun. Thank you very much to karrigan for coming on. It's great to have somebody as storied and as well-spoken as you on the show. I love it when we get some guests who can divulge information like you just did. So thank you very, very much. And otherwise, head over to anchor.fm/HLTV. You can get all of the audio options for the podcast there. That's about it. So thank you for tuning in. Good message from karrigan. Stay positive. Spread the love. Chill out. Goodbye.
Free the lamp.
Free the lamp.
Free the lamp.
Free the lamp.
See you later.